If you want the next part, let me know, and if you guys have any stories that you want me to post, just leave it in the comments. Now let's get into the story. Chapter 6. Late at night we find Alaric and Naruto sitting at the desk in the headmasters decided to work together to find where the hell that knife came from, so here they were burning the midnight oil looking for answers. Alaric was exhausted looking through a large book he found in the school's library. He turned the page only to be stunned. He found a detailed sketch of the knife and an inscription on the following page, surrounded by tiny sighed heavily, dropping his head down on the desk with a thud which alerted his blonde partner. Find something? Yeah, but it's Gaulish. He groaned sadly since he realized he had his work cut out for him since it was a bitch to translate. Huh, what's that? Asked Naruto as he waited for an answer, but it seemed like the older man was lamenting about his shitty luck. Why does it have to always be Gaulish? He said, frustration clear in his tone. Naruto chuckled and patted the monk's head. I don't know, I can't help you there, Dr. S, but I'm sure you'll find a solution, he said. Knew Alaric was resourceful and surprisingly accepting of him without any malice or preconceived intentions. Yeah, so are you going to tell me about your past? Asked the man as looked up at the younger blonde. The latter sighed heavily and closed the book he was reading. I will, but first pour me a drink, and you too, I'm sure you'll need it. Alaric looked at the boy confusingly. He knew the boy was 17, but he could see the pain in his eyes, so he agreed and fetched the bottle of whiskey he kept in the office for late nights, poured the 2 glasses and put the blondes down. Naruto took a sip. He appreciated the smooth taste. It was weaker than sake, but it worked. Where to start? I guess I'll start from the beginning. I was born on the 10th of October, but on the day of my birth a demon attacked the village I lived in. There was a man who was the leader. He was called the Hokage. He went to battle the beast, but this demon was different. They couldn't die since they were massive balls of chakra, so with no choice he decided to seal the demon into a baby who hadn't yet developed their chakra coils. He paused and took another sip of his drink as he stared at nothing. Many people died in the attack. The baby he sealed the demon in was his own son, being me. When he sealed the demon he died, as well as did my mother. Complications with birthing me and having the demon ripped out of her by a mysterious man that had a powerful power. Time passed. Somehow the villagers found out that the demon was sealed into a baby, and that baby was an orphan. They beat the child every year on his birthday. That was also the anniversary of the Kyuubi attack. He stopped as he remembered every beating he received, the harsh glares, the hate. He shook his head, clearing his thoughts. He saw Alaric clench his fists but didn't interrupt. On my 6th birthday the beating I received was one of the worst ones. I nearly died. If it wasn't for my tenant I probably would have. They stabbed me and the blade ruptured my heart. I fell unconscious and woke up in a sewer. My first thought was, not only did they nearly kill me but threw me into a sewer too. Needless to say, I was a very pissed off 6-year-old. He chuckled ruefully, remembering his mood that day. What happened? Asked Alaric as he gritted his teeth. This boy went through so much, yet here he was, never complained and wasn't consumed by hatred. It was a fucking miracle to Alaric. Well, I met the demon sealed inside of me. He was this huge 9-tailed fox behind a gates. He was imprisoned. I felt pity for him, because to me we were the same, caged in a village that wanted nothing more than our deaths. I spoke to the demon and asked who he was. Now you have to know, the 9-tailed fox was a grumpy one. He hated humans because of what they did to him and how they caged him. People said he was a demon, but he was created by a god and was sent to our dimension to keep balance. But humans are vile creatures, Dr. S. They are power hungry and would do anything to get that power, so humans sought to enslave this so-called demons, deeming them as an abomination. He shook his head as he thought about everything Kurama has to endure, being used as a pawn, a means to an end. You cared for your tenant? Asked Alaric, surprised since he was the cause for all the hatred the blonde received. It might be weird to you or even inconceivable to others, but I saw him as a father. One that cared enough to heal me every time I was hurt, attempted to comfort me when I had nightmares. He turned me in the man you see before you today, but I also taught him a few things. I never once hated the villagers for their actions against me. They were ignorant, but in the end they lost people they cared about and saw me as a daily reminder of those they lost. In the end, grief makes people do terrible things. He trailed off and Alaric nodded. He knew what Naruto was referring to, because if he didn't have his daughters when his fiancée died on their wedding day, he would have turned in a drunk, a husk of himself. So when I was 6 he took me in as his son, taught me things that would make me a proper ninja, an asset to my village and a protector. Over the years our bond grew, but I hid my skills until I deemed fit because I didn't want to give the villagers more reason to fear me. I saved them countless times. I dreamed of becoming the Hokage so that I could protect my precious people. I believed and still do believe that strength isn't determined how physically strong you are, but the difference is what you're fighting for. I used my power to protect. I'm no saint. I've killed people. At the age of 12 I was told I needed to be ready to kill someone, however I never killed without reason, but it comes down to me or you, and I chose to keep my village safe. He finished his drink and poured another. He heard Alaric speak. So why did the Nine Tails attack your village? Naruto laughed dryly. He was controlled by a man he hated more than anything. There was a clan that had a powerful tool. It could put you into an illusion, one that was extremely difficult to break even for the strongest minded of people or demons, and that's why he attacked. The man used the Nine Tails for his own revenge plot against the village. He swirled the remaining whiskey in the glass before chugging it down. My god, so how did you end up here? Did you die? Asked Alaric. Everything that the blonde endured by the villagers, and even killing at such a young age to protect people dear to was right. It was inconceivable, but not because he saw a demon, a father, but to be forced at such a young age to do such things. I did, but it was my own choice. That same man came back, but this time he tried to use all of the demon's powers. There were 9 in total, all with different strengths, but the strongest was Kurama, the nine-tailed fox that was sealed in me. This man wanted to put the entire world under an illusion of peace, meaning he essentially would take away the freedom, their choices, opinions, he said, disgusted by Madara's ideas of peace. He said it was the ideal version of peace, scoffed Naruto as he continued his story. Of course I denied his peace, because peace can't be forced. It only happens when there's a mutual understanding between two opposing parties, where bridges can be forged and pave the road forward. He said I was naive, but in the eyes of a world threat we managed to form an elemental army against him. Ninja from all nations banded together. Set aside their differences to destroy him. It didn't go all well. Many people died, but I managed to get him into a stalemate, so in order to ensure that he was removed completely, I used a seal that was only known to my clan. It was a forbidden technique called the Death Reaper's seal. It summons the Death Reaper. You ask him what you wanted but pay with your soul in return. So in this stalemate I used it and summoned the Reaper and used my soul as compensation to destroy Madara and free the demons under his control. He finished, staring into the empty glass. Alaric looked at the boy with empathy. Tears filled his eyes. He couldn't stop them from falling as he listened to the blonde recounting the events of his death. Naruto waved off his concern and smiled softly. I expected to be stuck in purgatory since that's the Reaper's domain, but instead I found myself in front of God, faced with a choice to live eternity in heaven or come down here and help out to fight some evil. The choice was easy. He grinned and looked to Alaric. The man burst out laughing and shook his head. How the hell do you give that up? Living in peace for strangers? Naruto chuckled. My father figure Kurama always said I was an idiot. A genius, but a fucking idiot. Besides, I like it here, and even though Kurama had faded from existence, leaving me with a gift of eternity, I feel that I've made the right choice. He shrugged and poured them another glass of whiskey. He tilted his glass and knocked it lightly against Alaric's. To new adventures and new friends, Kampai, he said happily before finishing the drink in one gulp. Alaric shook his head at the boy. You drink too fast. What the hell, you've had 5 yet you're still normal. Fast metabolism. Smirking cockily at the tipsy Alaric. Come on, let's go rest. Tomorrow I'll go after the mop boy and the mutt, track them and bring them back here. All right. Alaric nodded as they made their way out of the office. That would be great, kid. Thanks and good night, and if it makes you feel any better, I'm glad you decided to come, he said genuinely, and Naruto chuckled. Of course you are, since you're too old to fight, but don't worry, I have plenty respect for my elders. Alaric scoffed, mocking offense. Oh, shut up, kid, see ya tomorrow. He shooed the boy away. The next morning Dorian was teaching a spell-casting class. All of the students were holding hands, sitting in A, Hope and Lizzie being amongst the students present. All right, come on, gather together now. He gestured, walking around the circle, instructing the students of the group assignment. Chain spells are about fluid movement from witch to witch, he said. He looked around to the group and noticed Penelope. All right, where's Penelope Park? Lizzie tried to be snarky even though Satan wasn't there to witness it. Maybe she was recalled back to hell since fire and brimstone is all she knows. Dorian recognized the girl's snarkiness and decided to move on. A disharmonious group makes an uneven flow. He didn't notice the unintentional pun he made as the students snickered. He rolled his eyes and tried to continue but was interrupted once more with a parchment form. The headmaster's office. Who's in trouble with the headmaster? Asked Josie, knowing that it was probably them. She noticed her twin give her a sarcastic eye roll, but Hope commented, probably the people that started a fight at the charity game. Dorian ignored the comments and read out the note out loud. Josie and Lizzie Saltzman. He looked into Hope's eyes and motioned, and baby makes 3, off you go. Both Josie and Lizzie shared a confused look since Hope was the golden girl, or at least that's what Lizzie thought. In the library stood Alaric waiting for his troublemakers. He filled the time with putting the books where they needed to be. As he did this, the girls followed and he instructed them to help out put books away. None of the girls were happy with what they were being forced to do, but Lizzie had the guts to speak up. Dad, this makes no sense. Why are we being punished? She asked, genuinely confused by her father's still suffering from a mild hangover from last night's drinking gave Lizzie an exasperated look since the answer was quite obvious. Ha, because you started a brawl at a charity football game and also worse, risked exposing what we really do here. Lizzie pouted. But you weren't that upset last night. I was mad all right, but my undying love for my daughters just happened to trump my rage, he said and turned to face his daughters and student. I signed you up for community service as reparation for the fight you started. You're lucky it's not actual jail time. Lizzie, ever being the drama queen she was, decided to cut in again. Can I at least offer my rebuttal if it pleases the court? She asked, nearly laughed but merely sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose, trying to miserably hold back his pounding headache. Never drinking with that kid Aga, he thought as he tuned back into his daughter's speech. First of all, I was provoked and my reaction was totally proportional to the amount of abuse I had to endure. Hope on the other hand chuckled at Lizzie's speech, which only served to enrage the blonde further. And secondly, she paused, looked to her dad and Josie. If anyone should take the blame, it's Josie. Josie, who was listening now, looked at her twin, betrayed and offended that she even blamed her, and couldn't help the sharp "what?" that escaped her mouth. I'm sorry. I totally cracked during cross, but if you had just let Caleb catch the ball. Josie scoffed incredulously and muttered, yeah, okay. Alaric, who now had some reprieve from his headache, had a stern look on his face and decided to put an end to his daughter's dismal failing defense. You'd still be in trouble. Hope, who was enjoying the scene way too much, considering the events of yesterday, needed a good laugh, and Lizzie provided just that. But nice job throwing your sister under the bus, she said with a sarcastic thumbs up. Lizzie sent her a glare, showing that the comment was not appreciated at all. Josie was touched by the sudden defense that Hope gave her, so she sent the girl an affectionate look and grateful smile. Thank you, Hope. Alaric decided to wrap everything up and get the kids in their way. Speaking of buses, the bus is outside waiting on you. Have fun with community service. He shooed them away. Both Lizzie and Josie sulked as they walked away, but Hope stuck behind. She wanted to know why she was being punished. Okay, yes, she knew, but it still didn't hurt to confirm it. Why am I getting punished? Alaric kept a blank look on his face. He wasn't ready to tell his daughters of the new dangers they might face until he got answers from the knife and Landon and Raphael was back here. So he just stared at her and said meaningfully, you know what you did. Seriously. Yes, now go. I want to help do research. Playing her last card, but Alaric wasn't buying it. I have Dorian helping me and Naruto, so let us deal with it. Go be a kid. He somewhat pleaded because he knew he needed Hope to keep a tight lid of the events that happened yesterday. That's not fair. You only play the kid card when you don't need something from me, she argued back. Also, Naruto's a kid too, she said. Alaric had enough. I'm spinning here, okay? I just need you to keep a dragon-sized secret until we can figure out some answers. Understood. Hope gave a fake smile and left to board the bus. Mystic Falls Town Square. Dorian was handing out tasks to the kids, and well, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, most of them were against cleaning up, especially since they were treated so badly by the townspeople, or actually just the teenagers from the high school. Josie and Hope decided to work together while Lizzie went off and cleaned up graffiti, but after an incident involving a milkshake between Lizzie and Dana, Lizzie had milkshake all over her and decided to go back to school to get cleaned up, since there was no fucking way she would continue the day covered in strawberry flavored milkshake. Off Route 29. We find Raphael and Landon sitting around a fire trying to cook a rabbit or squirrel. I think it's done, bro, he said, pointing to the woodland creature they caught. Raphael took a bite but grimaced at the taste. Okay man, I think we need to catch a deer or something, but anything less rabbity. He shook his head but Landon chuckled. It's alright with me, but thanks for sticking with me, bro, he said, genuinely appreciating his brother's presence. He missed Hope, but he knew she wouldn't forgive him easily. She hates me, doesn't she? Yeah man, of course you kept lying to her and me. Want to explain that? I don't know, it's like the knife wanted me to steal it. He tried putting into words but he couldn't. Forget her, bro, you won't see her again. Raphael noticed Landon's face fall and tried to cheer him up again. Look at us two bros living off the land, nothing could be better, he said cheeringly, but Landon chuckled at his attempt. Burgers would be better, he quipped. Mystic Falls Town Square. Hope and Josie were picking up trash in silence before Josie broke it, asking why Hope always seemed to pick a fight with Lizzie. You guys do your fair share of poking too, Hope mentioned, trying to build up her defense at Josie's accusation. Yeah, in retaliation to your pokes, I mean, we know each other for nearly a decade yet we still can't get along. Also Lizzie and I feel the same way, especially with the way you and Dad are keeping secrets. She shook her head. We're not keeping secrets. Josie ignored Hope speaking and continued. Yeah, what happened to Landon Kirby, huh? Hope looked away from Josie, evading the question. Nothing happened. Something did. Raphael never showed up for school, and right after you, Dad and Naruto go on the hunt for Landon Kirby, but when you got back Dad was clearly rattled but tried covering it up, so why don't you just tell me? She pleaded, but Hope was a tough cookie to crack. Because there's nothing to tell. Hope trying to slam the poker into the ground to emphasize her point but sorely misjudged the direction and it landed in her foot, or rather it's more accurate to say that she stabbed her foot hard. Fuck ah. She fell down on her but telling Josie to pull out the thing. Take it out, I can heal myself, she hissed in pain. Becoming impatient, she rushed Josie. As the girl pulled it out, she fell on her ass too and started a giggle that turned into full-blown laughter. Oh my god, you poked yourself, she laughed, holding her stomach. Oh, shut up, said Hope. It held no venom, just amusement. Hope and Josie started to talk and Hope tells Josie why she is receiving punishment but reassured her that she didn't tell anyone that Josie helped her with the spell. It's not the whole truth, but it would hold her over, for we're nearly finished. As they put the trash in the orange bags, Josie held her stomach. Hope watched in concern. You all right? Concern etched into her voice. Josie felt happy that they were finally getting along after all this time. It's nothing, just saw something that made me nauseous, she said, pointing to MG and Dana making out against the tree. Huh, rolling her eyes sarcastically, didn't see that coming. MG is a hormone-driven teenager and Dana is a slut, you do the math. Hope shrugged. Given my last crush, I'm in no place to judge, she said, thinking of Landon, and she felt nothing special anymore. She was prepared to kill him because he betrayed her. She thought of being held against Naruto's firm chest as she broke down, and his words that caused a flutter in her stomach before she could analyze her thoughts. Josie spoke, breaking her away from them. Well, my crush was Satan incarnate, but that's not if you count. She shook her head, trying to stop thinking about it, but Hope was curious. Who? She honestly hoped it wasn't a certain blonde guy. It does matter. Lizzie had dibs. Hope furrowed her eyebrows. On Raphael? She asked, hoping that Josie was referring to him, and luckily Josie nodded. That's not fair, Lizzie always gets dibs. It is what it is, said Josie glumly, trying to forget about it. They continued to walk on the sidewalk and talked, but Josie doubled over and explained that she was feeling twin pain and Hope knew something was happening. They rushed over to the bus where Dorian was. They forced the poor man to tell them what was going on, and Hope saw a book about gargoyles and her fear was confirmed. She grabbed the book. Gargoyles. She looked to Dorian, who tried to remain indifferent, but his worried expression gave him away. Rick wants us to stay away from the school until it's sorted. And where's Naruto? Is he there too? Asked Hope anxiously, but Dorian didn't respond immediately. I don't know, Hope, he answered. Hope took Josie's hand and decided to run to school. They finally stood in front of the gates, but there was a barrier which kept them out. Josie siphoned the magic and entered the school. Hope told Josie to get a weapon. They split up to cover more ground since the entire school was quiet, which was weird for the Salvatore school, so something definitely must have happened. Hope continued to walk through the halls ready for an attack. She was about to attack when she heard a noise around the corner. Dr. Saltzman. She sighed in relief that she didn't fire the spell. Hope, what are you doing here? He frowned watching the girl. He told Dorian that no one should return until he knew it was safe. He knew Naruto was out finding the two runaways, but if things got out of hand he would make the phone call, but for now it didn't seem too bad. Yeah, well, he tried to keep me away, but here Gargoyles 101, he thought you could translate it. She hands over the small thin book. Alaric groans. He could see even by the title this book was not in English at all, it was damn Gaulish again. He screamed in his opened the book and tried to translate what he read. Son of a. He paused, not wanting to curse in front of Hope, but Hope tried to redirect him to the task at hand. So did our Gauls provide clear instructions, or are we on our own? She asked impatiently. Ha, well, in short, hit as needed. Both of them got startled when the head stomping footsteps near them. Hope stared at her headmaster with wide eyes. Is that? She trailed off in surely, but all Alaric did was provide a short nod. The stomps caused the overnight lights to swing wildly in the hallway. Yeah, listen, that thing poisoned Lizzie. I'm guessing to get my attention, or at least try to get the. It attacked me and took the knife. The knife, the dragon knife, and you're still breathing. Yeah, I've got a theory. He was cut off by Hope. Yeah, save it, because we had to take down a containment spell to get into the school, meaning our monster can get out. A containment spell. He paused confused, then thought of his blonde daughter, Lizzie. Smart girl, but how did you take it down? Before Hope could respond, around the corner stepped Josie, staring at her father sternly. She didn't, I did, and I have questions. She yanks out the axe out of her father's hands and stares him down with a serious look. Hope. Alaric and Josie walked through the hallways of the school with purpose, Josie still holding the axe she took from her father. Alaric since found his own weapon, which he had clutched in his right hand. Meanwhile, in the lower school, Emma with the still palailed Lizzie in the lower school was hiding out with the rest of the younger children, covered up with an invincibility spell. To cloak them from the gargoyle that was roaming the halls of the school, they heard a noise at the door. Emma, Emma, whispered Alaric, trying to be as quiet as possible. Before she could say anything, the stomping noise started again. She held her index finger to her mouth, instructing Alaric to be quiet. Shish. They waited for the noise to fade, but Hope heard the stomping noise again behind her and immediately sensed the creature and the grinding noise it made as it moved. Emma quickly closed the sliding doors to protect the younger students, leaving Hope, Alaric and Josie on the other side. Hope stood several feet in front of Alaric when the gargoyle made its move. It leapt into the air, using its wings to glide over the stairway, and attempted to stab Hope with the knife, but she was barely able to dodge and fell back on her back. She scrambled to get up to her feet when the gargoyle attempted to stab her a second time, though he stops mid-air when Alaric threw himself between Hope and the gargoyle, preparing for the worst. No. When the gargoyle stopped inches away from his heart with the knife, Alaric breathed a sigh of relief. Josie uses this moment to capitalize on the gargoyle's frozen movements and leapt behind him, swinging down the axe as hard as she could, breaking off a large piece of its left wing. Off Ward 29. Meanwhile, we have our blonde-haired hero searching for Landon and Raphael. He found traces of a camp and stayed out to see whether they would return. They were sloppy and left their tracks to be easily followed. Soon a noise was heard and he saw Landon and Raphael, but there was another man standing before them with a cross-side. He didn't know what these two got into from the time they left them in this very woods when fighting the dragon lady. He dropped down from the tree branch he was relaxing and gathering the attention from the other three. As much as I don't like Mop Hair and the mud over there, I've got a mission to bring them back, so about you let them go, buddy? He asked the unnamed male. He heard the guy laugh. Oh yeah, I'm a werewolf hunter, and well, that dog's gotta be put down, and then I'll do the same to you. He said loudly and cockily, which served to give Naruto a nasty and unwanted flashback of Grimace scowling at the man and decided to take him out. All right, you asked for it. He used a shushin to spear in front of the man. While the man gasped from surprise, he used that moment of immobilization against him, knocking the crossbow out of his grip and sent an bone-crushing punch to the man midsection. He watched impassively as the man dropped to the ground. He didn't want to kill, but he had a feeling the man would hunt supernatural creatures, and if he let him live he might come after some other students. The man groaned, stood up to his feet wobbling a bit and spat out a bit of blood. Oh, you asked for it, he screeched before lunging at the blonde who merely dodged his sloppy punches and evading his attacks. What's wrong? Fight back or I'll kill you, he said seriously while Naruto watched the man with an impassive face. Sighing, he prepared a raid and attack. Chidori, he murmured as his hand was covered in lighting that sounded like 1,000 chirping pushed his hand through the mon's chest, rupturing the vessels near his heart. He felt him take his last breath as he slumped forward into Naruto's side, sadly by taking a life, but it was to keep those kids safe, he knew that, and comforted himself with that. Took his hand out of the mon's chest and let him drop to the floor. He turned his head to Raphael and Landon standing there with their mouths open trying to formulate a response. Don't try and run, I'll just find you again. Now be a good mutt and a good mop-haired boy and stand still until I incinerate his body before it gets investigated. Kaden Hausenka no Jutsu. He spat out 5 balls of fire onto the dead corpse. He watched as the body burned and held his palms together in a prayer. May Kami or Yami have mercy of your soul, he whispered quietly. Let's go back, he said as the flames died out and the only remains was ashes. What do you mean go back? Asked Raphael curiously. I mean let's get your dumb asses back to school since you wreak havoc and just leave fucking cowards. He walked closer to them and cleaned his hand of the remaining blood. Luckily he just wore a white short-sleeved t-shirt, but he frowned when he saw blood on his chest and guessed it was probably when the hunter fell forward onto him. Why? I mean we can live out here, said Raphael and Landon, nodding furiously, backing up his foster brother's claims, but Naruto scoffed and rolled his eyes. Of course you can, and then get killed by more hunters. That uses your head a trophy. He opened his arms wide and smiled sarcastically. Amazing plan. He shook his head and grabbed their shoulders before using a Hiraishin, disappearing in a red flash. He arrived at school with the 2 disoriented boys, who clearly wasn't used to traveling such a long distance that fast. He forgot that these people didn't have chakra. He went down to the werewolf cellar and locked the boys in there while he went to find Alaric. The school was unusually quiet. He made his way to one of the common rooms and heard Alaric's voice. No, he was cut off by another voice. It sounded furious. Just save it, Dad, she shouted before he heard stomping away. He entered the room and looked wide-eyed at the mess. Furniture laying all around and a lot of gray stone laying on the floor. He looked in hope in Alaric's direction. They didn't notice him yet, so he spoke up. What the hell happened here? He said, gesturing to the mess. Alaric looked at him and shook his head. Attacked by a gargoyle, and I'll give you one guess what he wanted. The knife? He asked, and Alaric just confirmed his thoughts. Damn it, that thing is acting like a beacon. Saying his thoughts out loud, and Alaric couldn't help but agree, but before he could say anything Naruto was rushed by Hope. Where have you been? We were fighting a gargoyle and you were nowhere to be seen, she said incredulously while gesturing around her to emphasize her wanted to laugh. He found her frustration, flicked her forehead softly. Were you worried? Flashing a smug smile, the girl immediately backtracked and stepped away from the blonde boy. She scoffed. No. The word had no real meaning, and it was clear to everyone that she actually meant yes. She saw the blood on his t-shirt and looked him over to see any visible wounds. Naruto followed her eyes and sighed. It's not mine, I had some trouble when I was on my mission, he told her before looking to Alaric. They're in the transitioning cellar, he said shortly, and the man nodded in thanks but asked what the blood was about. Our mud attracted a werewolf hunter that knew he was from Salvatore. I made a choice with the future of the other kids in mind and took action, vaguely letting Alaric know that the man was no longer living. Alaric gave him a sympathetic smile and clapped his shoulder affectionately. You're all right with what you did? He asked softly. Naruto was touched by the monk's concern and nodded. I told you before, Alaric, we need to be prepared to protect them, and if I have to carry that burden I'll do so willingly, replied the blonde honestly. Hope was confused between the two, and she didn't like being kept in the dark. She was upset at Naruto just disappearing. Logically, of course, she knew she had no need to ask him her whereabouts since they weren't a couple and only flirted, or at least he did, as she tried to control her damn blood rushing to her. There were more important things to deal with at the moment, like letting the kids know what's happening in their school. I think you need to tell the students, Dr. Saltzman. Alaric nodded and agreed, even though he didn't want to. It was necessary to make sure these kids were ready to fight and protect themselves when needed. Sighing softly, he murmured a resigned, I know, heaving in a breath, I know. In the grand hall, Alaric has gathered the whole school once again debrief regarding the recent events involving the school. He stood at the front of the room to finally be honest about the newly discovered creatures. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have told you there's a difference between myth and fact. I would have told you that supernaturals were limited to the species under this roof. I would have said that folklore and fairy tales were just stories. But I can no longer say that any of that is true. 'Cause just a few days ago, we were confronted by the existence of a dragon. The students all begin to murmur quietly amongst themselves before Alaric continues. And then, today, our campus was terrorized by a gargoyle come to life. Some of us were forced to fight. We won. This time. They were drawn here by a knife that went missing earlier this week. And, for whatever reason, these creatures consider us to be the enemy. In their minds, we're the villains because we won't give them what they want. We don't even know why they want it. But we're gonna find out. I can't say for sure what their true intentions are. I can't say there won't be more attacks. That's why I'm telling you this, to warn you. To ask you to look out for each other. To do what's best for one another. Because we're more than just a school. We're a family. And we will stand together. We will fight together. And we will win or lose this battle together, no matter what comes next. He waited for the students to process everything he said. With that in mind, I'll be making a mandatory self-defense class that will be taught by a new instructor, Naruto Uzumaki. He pointed at the guy who stood to the left of the stage, Naruto, flashing a charming smile that made most women swoon. That is all, you are dismissed. He finished while gathering his things and making it down the stage. He walked next to Naruto. They spoke of Landon and Raphael. The two were standing by his office hugging each other. He spotted Hope watching the interaction with a clenched jaw before catching his eye. I'll see you later, Dr. S. He waved off the man before making his way to the blue-eyed, reached her and whispered near her ear, "You going to tell me why you're upset with me?" He asked softly, since the common room thing they hadn't spoken, or at least it seemed like Hope was avoiding him for some reason. I'm not upset, it's just that you're keeping things from me, and I'm not talking about your past. I have trust issues, Naruto. She paused before taking a breath while Naruto waited patiently for her to finish. I was worried you weren't here. I didn't know where you were. No one would tell me. I thought you were hurt or worse, and I don't. She stopped before she told the guy she had feelings for him and would be hurt if he left or got hurt. And then you come back bringing in those two with blood on your shirt. What am I supposed to think? Naruto smiled softly before pulling the girl into a hug. They were standing underneath the stairs, away from any onlookers. He spoke softly. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I left before you were awake. Hoped to track them. When I managed to find them, they were about to be killed by a hunter. He paused before continuing. I killed the hunter. He finished before releasing the girl and looked in her eyes, waiting for any sign of discomfort. I'm sorry you had to make that decision, she said honestly, because she knew hunters were relentless if her grandfather Michael was any clue and would make sure they kill and maim their prey. So Naruto choosing to keep kids safe from that kind of threat was noble, but sad that he carried it with him. You're not angry? He asked cautiously. He saw Hope raise her eyebrow and shook her head, giving him a small smile. I'm not. You were doing what was necessary. I know you don't like it and I can see it in your eyes. I don't know how to explain, but yeah, she shrugged before stepping out under the staircase. Naruto smiled and decided to tease the girl. You know, in my culture, when the hero saves the day, he gets a kiss from the princess, he said teasingly, and Hope stepped back and laughed at him before scoffing. Nice try, it's not that easy, hero. This princess likes to be taken on a date first, she said as she walked was a couple of feet away as Naruto walked backwards and watched her go. Well, I can roll with that, it's a date then, he said loudly. In the hallway he saw Hope turn her head before walking away. Before she disappeared around the corner he spoke loudly. It wasn't a no, princess. He heard her beautiful laugh before she disappeared around the smiled a goofy smile. I can definitely get used to life here, he thought as he walked to his own room for a shower and to hit the hay. Hope on the other hand entered her room and smiled a silly smile before going through her own routine. She found it strange how easily Naruto was able to calm her yet send her heart beating a mile. Were her last thoughts before she fell asleep. Chapter 7. In the grand hall stood Matt Donovan near a podium before the assembly talking about the latest disappearances and providing the students with the latest update on recent events. Alaric took over as spoke to the crowd. Given the recent influx of new monsters, we have reasons I believe the disappearances of these girls are have decided to take drastic measures, said Alaric before handing over the rest to Sheriff Donovan. Like Dr. Saltzman was saying, 2 local girls didn't return home last night, he said, flashing them the pictures of the 2 missing girls and passed it on so that it could be handed amongst the students. Dana often skips town for long periods of time, but this is a first for Sasha, so her parents are understandably concerned, he said, his jaw clenched with worry as he let Alaric take over again. Thank you, Sheriff Donovan. MG, who sat in front, stared at Caleb to his left and watched him with a suspicious expression since he came in late last night, after a midnight snack. Before he could delve further into his thoughts, Alaric interrupted him. Now, while the knife is safe away with Dorian and things are too quiet in his end, it won't hurt to assume the worst. With that being said, we are asking for volunteers to infiltrate Mystic Falls High under the guise of an exchange program to better relations between our schools, he said. There was murmuring between the students. He knew he was going to send Naruto with them to be in charge of whichever group was going. Lizzie lifted her hand and, followed by her sister, soon Hope, Landon, MG and Caleb, joined the volunteer group. He nearly sighed when he saw Lizzie raise her hand. He knew she wanted to do more ever since the gargoyle attack a couple of days. On the other hand, wasn't present since himself and Naruto tried to find out more about where the knife came from and why it activated after all these years of being dormant. Naruto told him he had a theory, especially since it activated after him or Landon arrived, but he told Alaric that he had no idea where an indestructible knife would come from, especially since he left his world only with his belongings sealed in scrolls. It still baffled Alaric that it was even possible, but he learned to just roll with the surprises since Naruto arrived. He thanked the group and told them to meet him in his office after the assembly. In Alaric's office, the group of volunteers stood in front of his desk. Naruto, on the other hand, was lying down on the couch with his eyes closed. Landon was still jumpy around him since he watched him kill a man right before his eyes. Also, he felt down in the dumps because he hadn't spoken to Hope since he returned to the school. Dad, are we allowed to use our powers? Asked Josie. Yes, given the circumstances. Unfortunately, I'll give you permission to compel and gather the necessary items to perform location spells, he said, looking the group. He was uneasy about it, but he obviously couldn't pass for a 17-year-old, so he had no choice sending this group to infiltrate the school. I guess I can put my hatred for Dana aside for the day and partake in bringing her safely home, because that's what heroes do. She turned facing her father and shook his head at his daughter's comments. All right, Lizzie, for this Naruto will be in charge. You follow his orders to the T. Is that understood? He fixed his face with a stern expression as he looked at each of his students. His eyes lingered longer on Landon's before he looked beside Caleb. Nodded. No offense, Dr. Saltzman, if you're talking about the blonde kid, he said, pointing to said blonde who was relaxing fully on the couch. His sleeping. How are we supposed to listen to him? Alaric laughed. His not sleeping, Caleb. Also, I wouldn't underestimate his experience if I were you, he warned lightly, knowing himself that Naruto, as young as he was, led an entire army in battle to defeat an evil that would have enslaved them, and he won by sacrificing his own life for the lives of many. Yeah, Dreads, I wouldn't underestimate me, said Naruto from his spot on the couch with his eyes still closed. Hope watched him from the corner of her eye and had seen he didn't open his eyes when he responded to Caleb, but she was really admiring how good he looked with his t-shirt riding up and exposed his firm abs, plus the sun illuminating his already golden hair. He was definitely opened one eye and caught her in the act and raised a brow while smirking and chuckling under his breath. Caught you, he mouthed, and the girl blushed and looked away. All right, if you're finished with the briefing, Dr. S, I'd like to get going before the trail runs cold. He standing up and nodded and said they could leave. He walked out the office calling the group. Come on, kiddos, we've got a damsel in distress to save. More like slut in distress, scoffed Lizzie. Naruto didn't turn around as he spoke. Why do you say that, Elizabeth? He asked, knowing full well that Alaric said she wasn't often called her full name since it sounded too old, but he didn't like women being called derogatory terms. It was degrading and ugly. Because she sleeps with anyone she comes across, answered the girl in a duh tone while the others just followed silently, listening to them back forth. Sigh, there's nothing wrong with having an active and healthy sexual appetite, Elizabeth. After all, it's a great stress reliever, he said, unamused by the girl's comment. You should try it sometime, he quipped before ending the conversation. Lizzie, on the other hand, was fuming. She looked to her sister for help, but Josie just shook her head and said, "You're on your own, Lizzie." Before getting onto the guys was snickering at how easily she was shot down and insulted in the same. Everyone was in the bus. He turned to the group. All right, here's how's it going to go. Lizzie, you and Josie will try and infiltrate the jocks. You're attractive women and those meatheads are easily taken with a pretty face. He turned to Caleb and MG. The two of you will try and infiltrate the cheerleaders. Anyone Dana and Sasha were close to, and last but not least curly-haired Sue is with me and you too, Princess, he said firmly and seriously before getting nods from the other, but Hope opened her mouth to object. I know you don't really like mop hair right now, Princess, but I won't let him out of my sight since you know he's kinda a runaway. He shrugged before turning forward in his seat and closed his eyes as the bus drove to Mystic Falls High. As the bus arrived in the parking lot and the other departed, Naruto heard them before he saw them. Mystic Falls, we got claws. On the field you'll hear us roar. Rawr. He laughed when he looked at them and winked. He definitely appreciated the view, not that he would say that out loud with Hope standing right next to him. She caught him staring. Enjoying the view? She asked. There was jealousy clear in her tone even though she tried to mask it. Naruto, of course, being Sensor picked up on the mood and responded accordingly. Nah, I'm wondering how'd you look in a cheerleading outfit. He shrugged before he walked. He saw the blush on her face. Pervert, she muttered under her breath, but he just laughed and continued his journey through the parking. The sign to split. They were in their respective groups trying to find information on the girls. Landon kept complaining about his high school experience before they were approached by some of the cheerleaders and asked whether Landon was bothering them. Naruto decided to fade into the background and let Hope take the lead since they would more open discussing it with a female in his experience. Besides, he needed stay with. Watched Hope disappear with the sat down next to him and asked about what the deal was between him and Hope. Oh yeah, I like her and we flirt, I guess nothing too serious yet, he said nonchalantly. He picked up on the boy's jealousy but didn't care for it. Just so you know, I won't give up on her. All right, whatever floats your boat, Curly Sue. He rolled his eyes and waited for Hope to join them. He saw her approaching. She had an addition on her head. He raised his eyebrow and commented, "Ooh, feisty kitten, aren't you?" He wiggled his eyebrows for emphasis. Hope giggles, but Landon once again spoiled the moment. What is that, Hope? He asked angrily. It's a gift from Dana's friends. He cut her off mid-sentence and scoffed. That isn't you. This isn't you, the mean girl, shaking his head sadly. Hope rolled her eyes and continued to speak as she ignored him. As I was saying, it belonged to Dana and has the potential to be used for locator spell. Naruto nodded but watched his surroundings carefully. He saw a young blonde girl wearing a scarf around her neck in the middle of summer. It was weird and needed to be checked out, so while the two were bickering, he stood up. Where are you going, Naruto? Said Hope as she saw the boy stand up, getting ready to leave. While you two were having a lover's quarrel, I saw something suspicious and now I'm following the lead. Want to join? He knew Hope had issues with Landon at the moment, but she really needed to put it aside because they needed to find those girls and find out what exactly happened. As other two nodded and he noticed Landon had a smirk on his face, probably because Hope didn't deny they were implied lovers when he said, "Lover's quarrel." Idiot, he thought with a groan. They followed the girl outside to the back of the school and saw Caleb about to feed on the girl, but he saw them and compelled the girl to leave. Hope was surprised since all the vampires at school were only allowed to feed from blood bags that were donated to the school since Alaric didn't want them hurting humans. Naruto was pissed off and nearly lost his cool. He approached the dark vampire and pushed him up against the wall, choking the boy, and used his strength to lift him up that his feet was dangling in the air. His tone was hard and unforgiving. Do you mind telling me what the fuck you were thinking when you were drinking from a human when you only allowed blood bags? He asked the boy. He saw the boy struggling to answer, so he slackened his grip a bit, allowing the boy to breath and answer. What's it to you? I'm a vampire. Their humans were better. Defending his actions with a stupid and elementary scoffed and let the boy go. Boy, he pushed his right hand through the boy's chest and smirked evilly, a smirk that would even rival the great Nicholas Mikhailson. He wrapped his hand around the boy's heart and watched his eyes widen at the sensation. Is that so? You think you're at the top of the food chain? He asked rhetorically before pointing to Hope and then himself. If anything, you're the dirt under my is higher than you, she being my unique little unicorn, but me boy. He emphasized with a squeeze. He noticed he gathered a bit of a crowd, the crowd being the rest of the people that joined him on the mission. If I find out you're hunting humans because you simply think you're better, I'll make you feel like facing Nicholas Mikkelsen, God rest his soul, is in Carnival Ride when I'm through with you. He sneered, flashing his fox demonic eyes that changed from the orange and red mixture to fully red with a black cross where his pupil saw the boy nod, struggling to breath as he pulled out his now bloody hand. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket to clean it off as he faced the rest of the group. Does my dad know you're threatening his students? Asked Lizzie somewhat reluctantly, since she just watched the handsome guy shove his hand in Caleb's chest without battering an eyelash. Naruto shrugged and answered vaguely, I do what's necessary to keep his students safe, and when one his students goes and sees humans as an all-you-can-eat buffet. Just because he's stronger and thinks he's superior, I deem it necessary to threaten said student, giving a practical answer before he added, the rules are there to keep you safe, and those who breaks them are trash in my eyes, because it's not just yourself that you're putting at risk but an entire community of supernatural creatures. So yes, Elizabeth I deemed it necessary to threaten him, he said as he cleaned his hand from blood and put it back into his pocket. Now MG, you feel guilty, why is that? He asked simply as he looked to the nervous vampire. I knew Caleb fed on humans, I'm sorry I didn't say anything because we're friends, but his reasoning is stupid. He rattled off nervously, but Naruto's stern expression didn't change as he listened to the boy. Get to the point, showing his impatience at the boy and lack of courage. He drank on Dana when we were cleaning up town square, and last night I found him in street clothes coming back from a midnight snack. Before featuring look to the boy, who now had a betrayed look in his face, he quickly defended himself. Yeah, I drank from her, but I never killed her, man, what the hell? He asked side. He was surrounded by children. They were worse than his genin team he had when he was fresh out of academy. He's not lying, he didn't kill. Before he could continue, Landon cut him rudely off and pointed to the missing girl, stumbling of the words behind the school. Yeah, she's not dead, but she sure looks like she was out through the ringer, said Hope, voicing her opinion since she was quietly watching the scene unfold in front of her, and she couldn't deny the arousal she felt at the show of dominance from Naruto and how it warmed her heart when Naruto said, God rest his soul, when he spoke of her father. Everyone thought of him as the evil or villain in their story, but to her he was her mind. The little unicorn comment she promptly ignored, because if she acknowledged it her cheeks would be redder than Caleb's blood. What the did you do to her? She looks like she's in transition. Lizzie gave Caleb a deadly glare. Of course I didn't. Do you honestly think I want to be saddled with that for eternity? He grimaced at the thought of listening to Dana talk shit all the time, constantly. Shut up, both of you. Naruto pointed to the bickering duo. He saw Dana was about to pass out, so he caught her and picked her bridle, examined the bite in her neck, and it was way too big to be a vampire bite. He thought about what other things could have caused it. Surely it looked like she was transitioning from what he read, but he wasn't too sure that she knew Caleb was telling truth when he said he didn't change her. Come on, we found one of our targets, let's get back to the bus and brainstorm about what could have happened, he announced as carried the pale, sickly girl. He didn't know her, but her felt bad. She was slowly dying. He could hear her heart rate slowing down, and it wasn't because she was unconscious. The rest of the group followed reluctantly, each having their own thoughts about what could have happened. Landon walked next to Hope, trying to get her to talk to him, but no dice, so he decided the next best option and tried to talk shit about Naruto to the group as a whole, since they pretty much witnessed him nearly kill one of their. His mind, he thought it was a perfect time to try and win Hope over, because he noticed the looks and side glances they would give each other. He looked to the front and saw Naruto was good distance away from them as he spoke. So that guy is a psycho, right? He chuckled, trying to get a reaction, but the defense came from an unlikely source, the person who had the most right at being angry at the blonde. I don't think he is, muttered Caleb honestly. When the blonde threatened him, he could feel and hear what he was saying. He thought because he was a vampire he was entitled to being great, but there was always someone stronger. Besides, he realized before he was cursed to this existence he was once human too. So he understood what Naruto said even more so after he told Lizzie off by using logic and sound reasoning. Dude, he nearly killed you, said Landon incredulously, staring at the vampire, but he just shrugged. He showed me that I'm not better than everyone like I thought I was. Now everyone else looked at him weirdly. Are you alright, bro? I mean, are you sick or something? Asked MG as he stared at Caleb suspiciously. Of course, he too agreed with Naruto, and he was too much a coward to call Caleb out of his behavior before today, and he didn't like that he vowed to try and change to become stronger and state his opinions clearly, and maybe even try and gather the courage to ask out the blonde saltsman out. Before they could continue the discussion, when you're done trying to badmouth me, Frodo, I suggest you get in here, said the blonde loudly from the bus. Lizzie outright laughed at the nickname. Oh man, I wish I thought of that. He's got a sense of humor, noble, sexy, and almost ticks every box. Whoever gets him is a lucky woman. Hope was listening quietly. She didn't want to say anything, but she heard what Landon was saying, but clearly he didn't know what a psycho was. She decided to ignore Lizzie's appraisal of the blonde because it made her irrationally jealous, so she calmed her feelings and got into the bus to try and discuss what could have happened to Dana. There was a lot of arguments between the kids while our blonde hero sat still taking in everyone's points. He realized Hope didn't even protest when they said that Landon could be the monster, even though he allowed the boy to cook down, since Hope just completely denied him before they could continue. Dana woke up and said she felt, and Hope tried talking to her about the most popular suspicion, which was that she was becoming a vampire, and MG spoke to her in a soothing tone. We know how you feel, you're just a little bit hungry. Dana, not understanding where MG was going with this, but cut him off rudely. No, I'm not. Anorexia with sophomore is something else. Maybe, but you'll feel better after you feed, I promise, chimed Hope. I'm trying to soothe the girl, but Dana braced herself with one hand as she swayed, still feeling nauseous. Oh, shut up, even thinking about food makes me want to. Dana heaved and puke all over the floor of the bus whilst the others watched silently and jumped back in revulsion. Naruto watched as she puked her guts out literally and ignored the comments from his inner thoughts were confirmed something else had done this, not a vampire. I don't think it's a vampire at all, MG. I'm told you know a lot about fantasy and fairy tales. Any idea what could make a girl literally die from puking out her guts? He snapped his head up to the boy. Naruto had already taken a photo previously of the bite of the girl and wanted to dial Alaric's number to try and see whether he could identify it. I don't know, man, it could be anything, maybe a spider. He rattled off anxiously as they got off the bus away from the puke and the now dead girl. A spider. It needs to be a very big spider, but that would also explain the web I found in her hair, letting his thoughts play out loud. An arachne, if you want to be specific. There's something in Greek mythology about it. An arachne was originally a beautiful woman who was cursed by a jealous god and turned into a giant spider. All it wants to do is be human, so it wears the skin of its prey to pass. Oh my god, its fangs are huge, so they could pass for a vampire bite. And its bite liquefies its victims. Plus, Naruto found a web in Dana's hair. Alright, nice work, MG. I'll call Dr. S. Naruto dialed Rick's number. Yo, okay, I think we know what the next monster is. It might sound crazy, but we think it's an arachne based on Greek folklore. He spoke into the phone. How far are you from school? You know I can be there in a minute. What's wrong? Oh no, I believe you, and I need you back ASAP and seal the body or remains, whatever it is, pleaded the man. Naruto heard the urgency in his tone and agreed before he put the phone down. Alright, we're heading back. Where's the hobbit? He asked, looking around. Before he could say anything, Landon came out with a face on his hand and said he encountered a spider. It left into the woods running towards the Salvatore school, and that was 10 minutes ago. Naruto now realized why Rick believed him so easily. They probably found its lair or something. Give me a second, I need to seal up Dana's remains, he said quickly before going back into the bus and doing the stasis seal that would keep her body reserved and allow a proper burial somewhat and give her parents closure. When he was done, he sent up a silent prayer. You okay, Naruto? Asked Hope softly as he exited. He nodded and gave a small reassuring smile. Yeah, I'm good. Turning to the rest, he decided to use Horizon to get back. I need each of you to touch me. We're going back the fast way. Naturally, Lizzie was the first and touched his chest, trying to give him a sultry grin. Even though they were clearly in dangerous situation, the girl needed to work on her priorities, he thought. The boys were a bit hesitant but finally got over, closed his eyes and visualized the school and left in red flash. The teenagers were disoriented from traveling or rather teleporting so quickly that they lost their lunch. He didn't have time to babysit them. He found Alaric near the old mill saying that they found its lair. All right, we need to draw it out here so that we can kill it, he whispered to the older man. They were joined by the twins and Hope, who quickly got over their nausea. All right, so Dr. S, lure it out with the knife while the girls prepare a fire spell, and I will accelerate the burning process with a bit of wind, okay? He told them quickly before Rick moved. He grabbed his shoulder. Don't be a hero, Alaric, he said seriously, and the man grinned and nodded his head to do his task. In about a minute Alaric was running and the spider following him quickly. As soon as Rick was clear, the girls held each other's hands and performed the fire spell. They spoke together. Incendia, the flame took root. It was too slow. Naruto decided it was his turn. Fuden. Sutomu Tornado. He muttered quietly and blew out a steady stream of wind that sped up the burning process. The wind fused with the fire. It was beautiful in a haunting way. Throughout the woods the dying screams of the creature was heard. He breathed in a breath. They lost a life today and he knew there could be many more. He looked to Alaric, who seemed to be having the same thoughts. We managed in time, Dr. S, but we need to know why the hell these monsters want that knife. His was face fixed with a serious expression as they watched the girls celebrate about a job well done. I know, but we could have lost many more lives, Naruto. We did good. Even though Haim himself had a tough time believing that statement. My classes need to start, and perhaps you need to think about extending a course for attack magic as well, he whispered as they walked back to the main building. Before Alaric could protest, he spoke again. I know you believe defensive magic is all they need, but it's clear that we can't be everywhere, Rick, and hand-to-hand combat will only take them so far. Think about it, okay? Just those who you can trust not to misuse their gift, he said as he turned down the hallway. Alaric was left with his thoughts. He knew logically Naruto was right, but he wasn't that happy about it. But it would be better if they knew what to do instead of leaving them at the mercy of a monster. Night has fallen, and Naruto, Hope, Lizzie, and MG are in front of the school gates with Sasha. MG is about to compel her to forget what she saw that day as Lizzie and Hope chat quietly. Was she bitten? No. You're gonna be fine. There was a party in the woods. You and Dana had the time of your lives. But, on the way home, you guys were attacked by a mountain lion. You survived and Dana didn't. There was nothing you could do. Dana's dead. Lizzie, feeling sorry for Sasha, walks toward her and MG. Naruto stood by and watched silently as Lizzie felt sad for the girl. He saw Hope's expression, so he walked closer to her and stood next to her, letting her know that he was there for her if she needed him. Take it all away, just take it all away, MG, said Lizzie sadly as she watched the heartbroken look on Sasha's face. Hope spoke up. You can't compel her not to grieve, Lizzie. She whispered harshly. Looking offended. I'm helping her. Hope looks past Lizzie and at MG. Tell her that it's gonna hurt. It always will. Tell her that some days will be harder than others, but eventually she'll remember the good times she had with Dana, too. Tell her to hold on to those, because it's the key to getting through this. Lizzie looked at Hope empathetically, as though she's finally starting to understand her better. Hope, feeling vulnerable due to this confession, turns and walks back toward the school. She doesn't make it far. Naruto grabs her hand and uses a shushin to take them to the lake. He held the vulnerable girl in his arms with his chin on her head. You did well, princess. Thanks. I'm sorry I'm always crying on you, she said as she stepped away from the blonde. Wiping at her, wanted to reach out, but he decided not to, but instead lightened the mood and tried to wash away the clouds that gathered in the girl's eyes. Why did the chicken cross the road? He asked seriously as he looked at Hope. The girl scoffed unbelievably and decided to play along. I don't know why. She giggled at the silly joke. Because it wanted to buy chicken nuggets, he said with a foxy grin, and Hope's giggle turned into full-blown laughter. Oh my god, you're a dork. Naruto shrugged. It worked, didn't it? What do you mean? She looked confusingly at the blonde. The clouds in your eyes are gone and it's back to a brilliant blue that I'd happily drown in, he said with sincerity. Before Hope could respond, come on, it's late, let's get you back to your room, he said, walking in front of. Looked shocked. No one had ever given her such a honest. The blonde was flirty, but she could feel the sincerity in that last comment. She followed him. They neared her room. He gave her a grin and kissed her forehead and murmured, "Your parents would be proud of you. Hope never doubt that," he said before he disappeared. "I really do like him," she said to no one in particular. Chapter 8. A week had passed with no new monster attacks, and it was a relatively slow week but a good one. The classes Naruto started had been ranged from different ages, from the primary school kids to the high school kids. Of course, the younger kids didn't have actual self-defense training. Instead, Naruto took to leaning about Tai Chi, a form of martial arts from this world. He learned it in a night by abusing his poor shadow clones. That the next he made one, he got a smack to the head. And that's where we find our young hero sitting on the deck near the lake with his young pupils before him. They had gone through the meditation exercises to calm their minds, to be able to act fast in an emergency, and most of all with a clear mind. So now that we have completed our daily meditation and Tai Chi exercises, I have a question for you, my cute little students. He smiled toward them. They were his favorite class. They were attentive and loved his stories. Pedro lifted his hand. What would that be, Naruto-sensei? The small curly-haired boy asked. Like Naruto, Pedro was too an orphan but had a witch bloodline and manifested his powers very early in his young life. He was lucky to be found by the other headmaster, Caroline Forbes. Well, my question to you is, why do you want to be strong? He asked them and watched patiently as each other, their faces scrunched up in concentration, trying to find the answer. A brunette girl called Victoria answered, "To protect my friends, sensei," she said with confidence. Everyone else looked at her. The young girl ducked her head, embarrassed. Naruto grinned. "That's right, to protect your friends, family and people precious to you. Only then are you able to be strong." He looked to each of them in their eyes. Know that love is a strength, and it's the strongest power that we can have, whether you are witches, werewolves or vampires. To love someone or something, you will get strong enough to be able to protect it or them, he emphasized by pointing to his heart. Is that why you're so strong, sensei? Asked Pedro. Naruto nodded. From a young age I found someone to protect. I wanted to make sure I was strong enough to endure any kind of pain, whether it was emotional or physical. So I trained with a goal in mind, and that's what I want you to think about. What is your goal? And tomorrow you can share it with everyone or just with me, and I'll make sure that you are strong enough to protect, all right? They nodded. Hi, sensei. The chorused together. No, come on, Dr. Saltzman has an assembly I need to get to, and you have classes. He stood up and let his little students follow him into the primary school building. He said his goodbyes and went to get ready for the day. The students gathered in the grand hall for an assembly where Alaric, standing at the podium at the front of the room, addressed them while Emma stands to his right and Naruto to his left. Given recent events, some students have expressed concern that I am not allowing you to have a say in the decisions that affect your future. He looks to Lizzie and Josie, who's sitting in the front row, who smiles shyly back at him. And I agree. If you are expected to abide by this school's policies, it's only fair that you have a voice in how those rules are made. So, I am forming an honor council. 1 vampire, 1 witch, and 1 werewolf, each elected by their peers, along with Emma, whose vote will represent the younger students. MG looks to the vampire section excitedly, since he wanted to be elected, but his face fell when he heard them talking about him. MG is such a narc, they whispered amongst themselves. Now, I have to go off campus. In the meantime, I expect you to make good decisions and to vote wisely. That's all. You're dismissed. Alaric turned and grabbed a duffel bag sitting on a nearby chair and calling Naruto over before heading out to the front of the school. Meanwhile, all the other students begin murmuring amongst themselves while they get ready to head to their respective classes. Naruto and Alaric was walking out to the SUV. They were both anxious to get to Dorian's cabin to find out what monster they needed to deal with now. Dr. S. The mud is calling you, Naruto said as they continued to walk. Just ignore him, maybe he'll vanish, joked Alaric. Naruto chuckled. I think that would make Elizabeth a very unhappy camper. Just hear what he wants, otherwise he'll follow us and then we have to deal with whining, he said seriously. The werewolf caught up to Naruto and Alaric as they stopped walking to their destination. Alaric turns and faces Raphael with an impatient look, and Naruto just as impatient with the newly turned werewolf. Is there a decision coming about if Landon can stay here? Naruto rolls his eyes and decides to walk to the SUV, and it seemed like Alaric didn't want to deal with this question. Raphael didn't give up and followed after them, but Naruto sighed and gave the boy his answer. Tests will be conducted to see whether he is supernatural, so pending the results it would determine whether he would stay or go, he snapped at the boy. What if the results aren't clear? Then I'll have a decision to make, said Alaric as he looked to the SUV, and then the boy. It seemed that Naruto was already in the passenger side, not wanting to deal with the boy any longer. Well, can the Honor Council decide? He asked nervously, but Alaric contemplated the question and gave him a nod. Thanks, you won't regret this, sir, he said cheerfully before turning on his heel, finally allowing Alaric to head to the SUV. He threw his duffel bag in the back seat and about to get in the driver's seat, when he was approached by MG trying to get leniency for Caleb, after Naruto already read him the riot act, but Alaric swiftly dodged any decision-making and said to bring it up at the Honors Council. He was about to open the driver's door once again, but it was telekinetically shut and he turned to face Hope. Are you kidding me? He said loudly. He heard Naruto laugh. It's not funny, Naruto, he said pointedly at the boy through the one window and turned back to face Hope. What can I help you with, Hope? He asked sarcastically, since he knew it was probably about the testing of Landon. You and Naruto get to interrogate a tree nymph, and I have to run Landon's 23andMe. Alaric sighed impatiently before he replied. First of all, it's a dryad, not a tree nymph. Second of all, I need a witch to run the testing spells. Hope gives him a hard look. Then let Ms. Tig do it. Can't? She's busy with the Honors Council and she's busy managing the school in my, I'm sure, unbearable absence. He smirked smugly before opening his door once again and added. Plus, if Landon can convince you that he belongs, he can convince anybody. Well, maybe not Naruto, but that's because he believes he should go back to the Shire. He joked about the last part, remembering how adamant Naruto was when they watched Lord of the Rings that Frodo was actually Landon. Hey, in my defense, there's uncanny resemblance to Frodo and Landon, so it's an easy mistake to make, he said, amused by Alaric and Hope's back and forth. He got out of the car and looked at Hope over the roof of the car. You're both enjoying this? Both Naruto and Alaric chuckled and said at the same time, you have no idea. Hope nods sarcastically and glares at the two men before shifting her glare to Naruto. You were leaving again without saying goodbye, Hope reminded, grinned and spoke in a dramatic English accent he managed to pick up from watching Geordie Shore. Ah yes, well, farewell my fair maiden, I will miss you so, he said with a wink as he watched the girl huff and walk, followed with his eyes before getting back in the just laughed at his silly partner and decided to get going since he seemed to be clear of any students trying to stop him. Come on Rick, let's get going before the twins decide to show up. With that he immediately got in and started the car. We need to get you a driving license, he said absently as he drove out the school gates. I suppose. Got any connections? Actually no, didn't answer that considering I'm a US citizen already, he answered his own question, but Alaric chuckled and nodded. By the way, who's taking your afternoon class? Asked Alaric. Oh, a shadow clone, reinforced so it would last until the end of class, he said, and Alaric nodded, satisfied that his duties wasn't being neglected even in the face of another monster. I need that technique, then I wouldn't get ambushed by students, he groaned dramatically, and Naruto chuckled as they continued their drive to Dorian's cabin. Hope was sitting at Alaric's desk staring at the wooden stand filled various test tubes. When the door opens to reveal Landon, shocked when he saw Hope would be conducting his test, he addressed her with an incredulous tone. What are you doing here? Hope stood up, trying to maintain a neutral expression at the boy's tone. Dr. Saltzman wanted me to administer your tests. No, you can't be in charge of my future here. Hope's raised her eyebrow. Excuse me. You're biased, you'd make me fail. He gestured wildly. Hope rolled her eyes at the boy. Neither of us has a choice, Landon, believe me, this isn't how I would be spending my day either. See, biased. Letting her know that her statement just proved his point, he turns and heads for the door. Landon. He stops and looks at her. You told me you want to know where you belong, so let's just get through this, okay? She says, changing her attitude a bit since she knew Alaric would not be a happy headmaster to find out that she was slacking off at the task, no matter how mundane it might be. Dorian's cabin. When Naruto and Rick arrived at the cabin, they saw the multiple weeds covering the windows. Alaric turns to Naruto and gestures to the weeds. Naruto sees them too and nods his head. Once they let in by Dorian, he goes to explain what happened. That he was enjoying the evening but the knife was out and on a box on the kitchen table. The next thing, her new vines were growing all over the and Naruto nods. He opens the door that he's keeping the Dryad in and motions them to come in. The Dryad looks bored, stuck inside the boundary spell that was set up to catch the next, sits on the armchair in the room while Naruto and Alaric stand near the exit and watched him ask questions about why they coming after the knife. Alright, my friends here had to kill a dragon and a arachne who was after the knife, and we figured that these monsters come one at a time, so do you mind telling us why you're after the knife? The Dryad scoffs unbelievably. Why would I talk to creatures that kill? Naruto scoffs and she turns to face him. What, you have something to say? He turns and looks into her eyes and nods. I do. Those creatures we killed was in defense of the innocent lives it seemed to want to take, so your judgment means nothing to us. He told her honestly. The Dryad seems to be taken aback by the honesty in his tone. So we'll ask again, why do you want this knife so badly that you and your fellow creatures are willing to kill innocent lives to get it? Trying to take the gentle approach, she looks at his eyes but decides not to talk. Dryads are known for the gentle nature and ability to live amongst humans in harmony, says Alaric as he reads from the book in his hand. He looks up to her. Well, we are not your enemy, we just want answers, Alaric says with sincerity. The Dryad is curious of the man and looks at him closely before speaking. Humans are known to lie. Dorian scoffs. So are monsters. She looks offended at the man and turns to face Naruto and Alaric. There's a man named Oliver that I used to cherish. Bring him to me and I will believe you are trustworthy. Naruto scratches his head and nods. All right, so we've got to bring her boyfriend, then we get answers easy, right? There's many people named Oliver, Naruto deadpanned Alaric. Whole Naruto laughs and shrugs. So let's ask our princess any specific traits of our Prince Charming, he says easily to the two men. I really need to not let to watch Netflix anymore, mutters Alaric, rolling his eyes at the nicknames he gave the Dryad. Naruto chuckles. Not Netflix, Rick, I learned that from Disney, he says proudly while Dorian just laughs at the two. So princess, mind giving us some more information on this man called Oliver? I have his ring, I'm sure you are resourceful. No. Naruto takes the ring and summons a small fox and lets her smell it. Can you find a Sentakane? The Dryad watches, surprises that this seemingly human make is able to summon a woodland creature just like that. I can, Naruto-sama, I'll be off now, she says before disappearing. What if we don't find this Oliver guy? Asks Dorian worriedly because he didn't want to negotiate with a monster, but from the look Alaric gives him he knows that they need to do this to find more answers and why the creatures of fairy tales are suddenly appearing now. The Dryad shrugs and smiles mockingly at the dark man. Trees are patience, humans are not, she said before taking her seat that was conveniently placed in the middle of the boundary. Finds the blonde unique from what she can feel. She knows there's 3 types of energy in him but none of them are conflicting with each. What confuses her even more is that he has natural energy which seems to pull her to him. She stares at him as he stands with his eyes closed. What you're sensing is the remnants of something my people call sage mode, he answers. He unasked is surprised that he knows what she is curious about but masks her surprised face with a face of indifference. And what does this sage mode do? She asks. He opens his eyes and gives her a small smile. Makes me one with nature, that's why you're so comfortable around me even though you don't trust humans, he says shortly before closing his eyes once more. Salvatore. Hope is conducting Landon's tests but so far he seems to be failing on everything. They are now outside of the field and tasks him to run around the field to see whether he has any stamina that a supernatural would possibly. Boy groans before he decided to get it over the middle of the field. She sees a few students training. Or at least sparring with each other. She wonders whether Naruto told them to do it on their own since he went with Alaric to find out more about the knife from the tree nymph Dryad or whatever. She spots a golden blonde head and wonders whether they came back already, but it's only been about 3 hours since they left. She decides to satiate her curiosity as she steps closer to the group. Close enough to hear the blonde speak as he instructs the students. She notices the blonde isn't wearing anything on his upper body, so she has a full view of his strong back and notices a spiral-like tattoo in the middle of his back. She doesn't know what it means but knows that it looks amazing on him because of the defined back muscles the man has. In battle your mind should be calm, your heart as well, but some of you might find that watching your loved ones or friends get hurt is difficult and might even lose yourself to emotion, he says clearly as he corrects their forms as he walks through the groups. Anger and rage are the worst emotions you could use if used incorrectly, he said, touched Jed's shoulder and told him to spar with him. He turns to the other and tells them to watch. He evades Jed's punches and taunts him with feints. After a minute he gets results as the werewolf boy lunges in without thinking. Naruto smirks and jumps high enough to perform a roundhouse kick that launches the boy away and lets him skid on the ground. Naruto made sure to use only 10% of his walks over to the groaning boy and give him a hand picking him up. You alright? The alpha grimaced but nodded. I'll heal, he says, smiling a bit. Naruto nods and turns to face the rest of the group. I taunted Jed and let him fall in a trap where I used his anger against him, and that is what your enemy will do. I'm not saying you need to be emotionless robots, however, learn to control your emotions. He turns to Jed and claps his shoulder. Use your anger logically. You can be angry or filled with rage but still make clear decisions. Understood? He asked loudly and the rest of the class bowed as he taught them, chorusing, "Hi sensei." He smiled and showed them off. The entire time Hope was watching how effortlessly Naruto fought, and now she was even more curious about his past. She knew he told Alaric, otherwise Alaric wouldn't have trusted him like he currently does. She wants to walk away before he sees her, but she's not that lucky. You spying on me? Asked clone Naruto. He knew his time was almost up before he dispelled. I thought you went with Dr. Saltzman. She evades the question while trying not to stare at his six-pack, which is currently on full display, and the layer of sweat glistening in the sun makes it that much more difficult. Nah, boss is with Dr. S. I'm just a clone he left to teach his last. Why do you have a little hobbit following you? He pointed to Landon, who was currently out of breath with his hands on his knees, panting, breathing heavily. Oh, for some tests, she says, looking back to Naruto, and he nods. Well, later by now, he says as he dispels in a poof of smoke. Hope sighs and turns to Landon. It was clear that stamina wasn't a power he had. She was sad that Naruto wasn't even here, really just his. She realized that she liked him. It was difficult to not blush when he complimented or called her princess. So she tried to be scarce this past week, but he was busy too, so she wonders whether he even shaking her head clear of the thoughts of the blonde. She looked back to Landon to conduct the next test. Come on, next is strength, she says and walks past him, but hears the boy groan. She rolls her eyes and wishes that Naruto was here even more now. Dorian's cabin. Alaric sits and reads his book while Naruto is sitting in a meditation pose. He's hit with the memories from his clone and smiles when his clone noticed how Hope was ogling his body. Hey, he says quietly. So how long would it take for you to find Oliver? Asked the Dryad, but Alaric looks to Naruto. My fox has already found him, he said, making one seal to create a clone. Akane has placed the kunai sense it and bring back the vampire, he says to the clone. The clone salutes before disappearing. The Dryad looks confused at Naruto and Alaric. The latter chuckled at her confusion. Is that a spell? She asks, but Naruto shakes his head. Nope, a technique or jutsu making use of chakra, he said vaguely. The Dryad, still confused, decides to feeling both of the men, speaks. How did you know it's a vampire, Naruto? Naruto shrugs. Akane and I share a telepathic link, comes with being what I am, and vampires have a specific sense. She couldn't identify it, so she explained it to me and then I simply told her. Alaric nods. It makes sense, but the Dryad speaks. Oliver wanted to spend eternity with me, so he made the sacrifice and became a vampire, she says sadly, remembering their plans. But it didn't happen. We weren't able to get away because of some circumstances. Alaric nods sympathetically. I feel your pain. You've also lost a great love, she states, looking at Alaric. Naruto kept quiet and continued his meditation. A psychic tree. Check. He evades his statement while Naruto chuckles at the mont's avoidance of speaking about his. The Dryad continues undeterred by his questions him and says he hides his pain with humor. After they speak of the people he lost, she looks to Naruto and says the same thing, expecting him to evade her questions, but he answers honestly. Yes, I've lost people because I wasn't strong enough to protect them, but I became stronger and in the end gave up my life to make sure those who are precious to me lives on. I have no regrets, he says before opening up the window to feel the breeze. Alaric watches him and sometimes he is still baffled by the 17-year-old's mental strength. Boss, I got him, but there's a problem. Naruto nods before he dispels the clone. What the hell is going on? He asks angrily, but the dryad looks to her lost love and smiles. Oliver, she says softly, reaching out her hand, but the man stares at her confused. I'm sorry, but who are you? Alaric feels the pain on the dryad's behalf and looks to Naruto. I'm guessing that's the bad news then. Yeah, he replies awkwardly. Salvatore grounds. Hope conducts the last test, but Landon fails. She writes it down on her notepad she's been keeping the entire day. Okay, that's enough, she says to the boy who's miserably trying to lift a tree stump. Okay, what's next? He asks cheerfully. Hope looks at him and sighs heavily. Nothing. What do you mean nothing? Hope turns and looks at him in his eyes and answers truthfully. I'm sorry, Landon, every test we have to determine whether you are supernatural or not was failed. She takes a deep breath before speaking again. She notices the joy's face fell when she tells him he failed. I'm sorry, Landon, but you're not supernatural, she says with empathy before turning to walk away. Come on, Hope, there needs to be something, he pleads miserably. Hope looks at him before being joined by Emma. All right, take sprints from the lake and back, she says, holding up the stands next to her and asks, what are you testing for exactly? His ability to get away from me as fast as possible, she says with a small Michelson smirk. Emma hums a little, amused as well. Did you run the lineage spell I left you? Asks Emma. I did. There's zero magic in his bloodline, she says honestly. Emma looks at her in deep thought. Thinking about what it could mean. Hope looks to the woman. Yes, I mean there's usually some trace of magic in humans from a far-flung ancestor, but having no magic is weird, she says to Hope. What does it mean? It means we have to learn about Landon's past. On the other side of the school, Raphael challenges Jed for the position of Alpha to try and get the power to let his foster brother stay at the manages to get the upper hand in the fight and is now the new Alpha. Jed, being angry that he lost, goes off and finds Landon. He finds him at the lake alone and beats him up. Before leaving him, he tells him that he should blame his foster brother for the beating. He walks away. He knows what he had done was unfair and he gave in to his anger, but being hot-tempered came with being a wolf. But now, after he let loose his frustration, he feels bad, so he decides to hide out. Lizzie finds out that her sister is running against her for a seat on the council, and she feels on the other hand is confused because she didn't put her name in the ring, but later finds that Penelope, her ex-girlfriend, wanted to mess with her sister and that's why she out the two of them. Though she tries to not run for the council, the witches seem to think she's the better candidate because she actually cares about their well-being and wouldn't be like Lizzie, who would use the power for her own. Feels conflicted but understands and decides to take the announces the winners, and the representatives would be Josie for the witches, Raphael for the wolves, and Caleb for the vampires. The school is quiet when Hope finds out that Landon was beat up by Jed. She attempts to help him, but she can't stop her thoughts from telling her that it was clear that Landon didn't belong here. A human in a supernatural school would only be asking for trouble and no one could defend him. Although wasn't strong enough to endure it, and she was afraid that he might. That last thought, her mind is made up. She decides to crash the council meeting and announces that she wants a seat on the council as well because the only person that could represent her interests was herself, since she was the only one of her kind, or like Naruto said, a unicorn. She banished that thought because she needed to be serious at the have a vote about whether Landon should stay, or everyone casts their votes and her vote is the one that tips the scales. It's 7 p.m. She wonders whether Alaric and Naruto returned already. She heads to Raphael's room and asks to speak to Landon. She gives him a bus ticket to New Orleans. My aunt is an original witch and she can help you find your mother, she tells him, and he nods sadly. Before they could say any more, a knock is heard at the door. She opens it and sees Naruto. He looks between her and Landon. She sees his jaw clenched slightly before speaking. Dr. S said I needed to take you to the bus station. You ready? He said, looking past Hope at Landon. Yeah, I'm ready, he says sadly. Naruto nods and turns. You may join Hope if you'd like to say a proper goodbye to him, he says before he walks away. You coming? Asked Landon. She nods and follows them. Raphael says his goodbyes to his friend. They all get in the SUV heading out the school gates. The drive is silent as Hope stares out of the window, watching the trees fly by. Near the bus station, Naruto stopped the car. See ya, Hobbit, he said as Landon got out of the car and Hope watched them wait for the bus. He decides to not listen into their conversation and puts in his earphones. He sees Hope give Landon something and puts it around his. The bus is pulling up at the station. He sees something that nearly breaks his composure. He watches the Hobbit kiss Hope and she kisses him back. He sighed to himself before looking away and waiting for the girl get in. The focuses on his phone and receives a message from Alaric. How long will you be? We need to talk about our findings. The Hobbit is getting on the bus now, so I'll be there in 15 inches. He hears the passenger door opens but doesn't look up and waits on the headmaster's reply. All right, be safe. Aye aye, Captain. No more Pirates of the Caribbean for you either. He chuckled and puts his phone away. Before driving back to the school, he doesn't want to ask Hope about Landon because at the end of the day it's her choice and he wouldn't interfere anymore, so he decided to just forget about it and move on. Did you guys find out anything important? She asked softly to try and fill the silence, but it looked like the blonde wasn't in the mood to talk. Nothing concrete, he says, trying not to tell her about Malivore until he and Alaric sat down and discussed everything they knew about the pulls into the front gates of the school and gets out of the car and walks into the follows him silently before they part ways. She wants to ask whether he's upset because he hasn't looked at her since they returned. Are you? She freezes up as he stared at her with a bored expression. She chickens out and asks instead, are you all right? You seem quiet. He gives her a short nod. Perfect. Good night, Hope, he said and turns down the hallway to go to Alaric's office. Hope stands still. He never really used her name. He always called her Princess. She wonders whether he saw Landon kiss her. She hopes he didn't because she did like him, but she was caught up in the moment and kissed the boy. Fuck, she said at her thoughts before going to her room. Maybe she'll try and talk to him tomorrow. Naruto entered Alaric's office and pours himself and the headmaster a drink. So what the hell are we going to do about this Malivore? At least we know why no one remembers the gargoyles or the dragons and basically just treat them as myths. That's something, said Alaric leaning back into his chair. Yeah, I suppose so, said Naruto glumly finishing his drink. Alaric notices he looks even more down than after they had to bury the dryad. What's up? You look distracted, he asked the blonde-haired boy. It's nothing. I'm going to have to disappear for a week. I want to go to the dragon summoning realm, maybe see whether they have any information on this Malivore since the elders has lived for eons, he said looking at the man. Alaric seemed to be thinking about it before the blonde spoke again. Can you handle my classes for a bit? I'll bring back something cool, he chuckled at the boy trying to bribe him. All right, and if there's another monster I can just stab that knife thing with the tag and you'll appear, he asked the boy. Naruto nodded and shook the mont's hand. Yeah, of course, I'll see you in a week, he said before biting his thumb and reverse summoning himself to the Dragon Realm. Dragon Realm. When Naruto arrived in the Dragon Realm, he watched the dragons fly freely. He smiled before he ran in his own summon. Ryujin, take me to the elders, he said seriously. He hoped the elders would have the answers because the feeling he got was a terrible one. Ever since they found out what was spawning these so-called fairytale, hops into his dragon and sits comfortably as he flies to the palace where the dragon elders stayed. Many didn't know, but the elders had magic that could turn them in human forms as well as grant them the ability to go to different dimensions, so he hoped that they would have the answers he needed. Ah, young Naruto, echoed a gravelly old voice. Naruto hopped off Ryujin and bowed in respect to the elder. Draken-sama, he said respectfully. He looked up to the wise creature, his face serious. I expect this is not a social call, young Naruto, spoke the dragon, and Naruto nodded his head. Unfortunately not, Draken-sama. He stood up straight. I need to ask you about Malivore. Chapter 9. In the Dragon Realm, Naruto stares at the elder dragon waiting for his answer, but from the expression on his face he knew that the frown on knew what he was talking about. I haven't heard that name in a centuries, Naruto. He looks to the young boy with firm expression. Tell me, where did you hear that name? As you know, Draken-sama, in my battle with Madara I was successful at beating him, but at the cost of my own life. I used the Death Reaper seal to seal the 10 tails and Madara by using my souls as compensation, the dragon nodded. Something else happened, otherwise our contract with you would no longer exist, he said, noting the boy was clearly alive. It did. I expected to be in purgatory, however. I was taken to Kami's court and offered a choice to live eternity in the heavens or travel to a different dimension who would soon be facing AA grade. Of course you know me, I couldn't turn down a new adventure, so I went down to this world. They didn't have chakra there, but they had supernatural creatures, vampires, witches and werewolves. He paused because he saw the look on the face of the elder. I see, and now you have come across this Malivore, yes? Naruto nodded. Well, our less sentient kin resided in that dimension on planet Earth when we discovered them disappearing in droves. My brothers and I wanted to find out who was killing our kin, so we traveled to the world to find out that Malivore was created as a prison for dangerous creatures. I don't know the true reason for it, but I do know that it was created by a witch, vampire and werewolf to house these creatures, and once a creature enters it, whoever lives on that planet would forget that it ever existed and merely write it off as a folktale or story for the little humans. Naruto stood wide-eyed as he listened to the dragon speak. It was clear to him that they would be fight many different creatures, but he was confused why it activated now. Why would it start up now after laying dormant for centuries? Asked Naruto. The dragon looked at him. Perhaps it's become sentient. But I do know that 3 items are necessary for this creature to rise. It is dangerous, Naruto, you should be ready, he warned gravely. Naruto nodded and agreed. Since time flowed differently here, a week on Earth would be a year here. I see. Well, that's also the second reason I came. I'd like to finish my Dragon Sage training, he said seriously, and the elder nodded his head. Wise choice. Anything else I can assist you with? Yes, I'm going to need a new katana for Kenjutsu and perhaps a dagger and arrows. Will you allow me to forge it in the volcanoes? He asked curiously, hoping the elder would agree. I understand your katana, but why the dagger and arrows? I have a good friend, but he's just a human. He's in charge of a school for supernaturals. He teaches them to control their power and teaches them to use it for good, to live amongst the humans and not treat them like less because they happen to be stronger. But he is only a man and I worry for his safety. If he had a dagger and arrows made with dragon steel, he could fight with me because I know that he would refuse to sit idly by in the face of danger. He chuckled at the last bit. Know how Alaric is. The dragon elder looked pensively and deep in thought. If this human was as noble as Naruto made him out to be, it wouldn't be a problem if he brought him here as well. He made his mind up. Instead of that, why don't you bring this human to our realm? And have him taught by us for a year, which would be a week on Earth, and have him learn to probably defend himself and protect his students. Naruto was surprised that the elder would allow someone who didn't hold the contract to come here, but he nodded his head. Of course, I'll do that immediately. See you later, G-san, he said before disappearing. Salvatore. The following morning, Naruto made his way to Alaric's office and knocked on the door. The man, surprised to see him here, opened up. I thought you said you'd be gone for a week. I know, but Rick, I got permission to bring you to the summoning realm to train in my sword style so that you can protect the school better. Rick looked shocked, but after a moment he schooled his expression. What? What about the students? Have Dorian watch them and I'll put up a barrier that no monster can enter for the week while we're not here. Also, I found out more about Malivore, he told the man impatiently. All right, how long will we be gone? A year, he answered shortly before exiting the office. I can't leave a year, Naruto, are you crazy? He said loudly, but Naruto laughed at the man's distress. No, it will be a year for us, but a week for the students of MMK. The man realized what he was saying and agreed. Okay, I'm going to call an assembly and put Dorian in charge with the help of Emma, and we will just say that we're finding out more about the threat of the monsters. He said before closing his office door and going to the PA room. He informed MG to make an announcement for an emergency assembly. In the grand hall, the student gathered for the second assembly that week. He stood at the podium waiting for the students to settle down. He spoke in the mic. I've called this assembly today to let you know that I will be gone for the next week researching and finding out more about the threat we face as a school. We have found a lead that myself and Naruto will be following to ensure the safety of the school. There was murmuring while his daughters, who sat in the front seats, were shocked at the father's declaration. Your safety is our biggest priority, so we will be employing a barrier around the school that will keep any monsters out should there be any attacks in our absence. he said firmly. He watched the faces etched with worry for their safety, but in the back he saw Naruto enter the hall with a nod indicating that the barrier was set up. Alright, so before we go we need you to come up one by one as we tag you with a special inscription that would allow you to leave the premises freely, especially on a weekend. Just because we face a threat does not mean that you will be imprisoned in the school. He soothed, since he knew some students had a tendency to sneak out. So if you could look to the back, Mr. Uzumaki will be doing the inscriptions, so please move forward in an orderly fashion and don't be surprised if you see more than one of him. It's simply to speed up the process. He chuckled dryly at the last bit. The students all turned and saw about 20 clones of Naruto standing and waiting for them to line up. They started from the youngest students to the oldest. The tags simply disappeared into their skin as they saw the blonde draw strange symbols on the palm or shoulder. Lizzie, who had forgiven her sister, spoke up. It's kind of like an invisible tattoo, she whispered as they moved and was in front of them but kept staring at the blonde, who seemed to avoid all eye contact with her. I guess so, it looks cool though, but it resembles Japanese letters, said Josie as she saw the letters. When it was the turn, Naruto held their hands and drew a double inscription on, answered the unasked question. Your father says he'd like to monitor your movements because Elizabeth has a tendency of going off campus in the middle of the night. He smiled at the shocked look on Lizzie's face. He knows. She looked to Josie, but the brunette shrugged. I suppose. Hope spoke to Naruto quietly as his clones was finishing up the rest of the students. Can I talk to you, please? Naruto nodded and they exited the hall and stood in the empty hallway. What is it, Hope? Did something happen? He asked with concern. She shook her head. No, I just want to find out why you're avoiding me. Naruto scoffed slightly. I'm not. You are. And even now you're not looking at me, you're looking past me. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. Because every time I do look at you I see you kissing the damn hobbit. Now if that's all, I have to get ready to leave, he snapped before leaving her standing there by herself. Hope had tears in her eyes. She realized why he was so pissed off. Over the last couple of weeks they would flirt and talk but never cross a line. They were dancing around each other and now she messed it up by kissing Landon back. She wanted to call out to him to explain that it didn't mean anything, but he was gone. She entered the hall to see most of the clones gone and just one left, finishing up the last student before dispelling. She looked to see if Dr. Saltzman was still around, but he wasn't there either. She figured they must have left campus already. She went to her room to paint to vent the frustration she was feeling. When she entered her room she saw a note on the bed. She looked around but there was no one there. She read the note. I'm sorry, I snapped. Forgive me. I had a lot of things on my mind and I realized I wasn't clear that I do like you, Hope, and I would to take you on a date when I return in a week. Naruto. She closed the note and smiled. If anyone was watching they would think she had a split personality because how quickly her mood changed. She folded the note once more and put it into her bedside drawer before falling down on the bed with a big smile on her. Was happy for the first time, and she knew she stopped herself from being happy because she felt it was an insult to her parents' sacrifice, but she couldn't help herself and decided to be happy just a bit longer. Dragon Realm. When Naruto arrived with Alaric next to him in the Dragon Realm, he was astonished by the expanse of green and dragons roaming freely. Oh my god, said Alaric as he breathed out, staring at the amount of mythical creatures flying in the air and blazing sky was devoid of any clouds. There was green as far as the eye could see. I know, right? It's beautiful. Now come on, he said as he whistled for Ryu to come down. The lightning dragon was even bigger than he remembered. Are you sure they won't eat me? Asked Alaric, suddenly nervous, but Naruto laughed. No, you wouldn't have been able to come here if you didn't have a pure heart, Alaric. You're a good man and dragons respect that, he said honestly as he picked Alaric up and put him of Ryu. Let's go to our training area, Ryu. They flew through the skies and Alaric was once again baffled by the amazing things he experienced. As far he knew he was the only one in the world could say he flew a dragon, well, besides Naruto of course. The year passed quickly for the two men. Alaric had trained with Naruto and grew a thick beard since he didn't shave, but surprisingly he didn't feel like he got older. He learned how to fight with a blade and arrows properly. Besides, Naruto was a ruthless trainer when he wasn't busy with his own training. Alaric met the Elder Dragon and was given a gift after they explained what they knew about Malivore. He knew the school was safe because of the barrier that was put up, but he couldn't help but worry about his daughters. He didn't believe Naruto at first when he said time flowed differently, but he could feel the changes in his body. He felt like he was in his 20s and apparently looked younger as well. Naruto explained to him that the lakes and oceans in the dragon realm had healing properties, and because he was human it rejuvenated him as well. His body felt 25, but his mental age, because of the training and he experienced, he would also actually be younger and live a longer life. He nearly confessed his love at one point to the blonde boy because of the excitement, but composed himself when he saw the boy rolling on the floor laughing at him. Now here they were a year later saying bye to the dragons. Naruto was taller and now stood at 5.12. He realized that Naruto was much stronger than he initially thought. Over the year they got know each other better as well. He nearly lost his temper when Naruto went into details about his life and missions he went on as a ninja. The one that really angered him was when a ninja named Sasuke deserted the village for more power to kill his brother, but in the process of him escaping he nearly killed Naruto, yet the villagers hated Naruto because he wasn't able to bring the traitor back. It was sickening to hear, and he was sure even more difficult to live through. Naruto bit his thumb and performed the jutsu that would take them back to Earth. "Ready to see your daughters?" asked Naruto. "More than you know. What about you? Ready to take Hope Mikkelsen on that date?" Naruto chuckled. "Yeah, hopefully we don't have to deal with any new monster attacks until I can ask her to be my girlfriend if she lets down her walls long enough," he said. He performed the jutsu before the man could respond. Under 5 minutes they were standing in Alaric's front of Dorian, who fell out of the chair. "What the hell?" yelled the shocked librarian. Alaric chuckled, offering the shocked man a hand, helped him to his seat. "Sorry about that. I didn't know anyone was going to be in here," shrugged Naruto. He checked the time. It was nearly curfew. "Rick, I am going to go see Hope now. See you tomorrow." He looked to Dorian and nodded his head politely before exiting. The made his way to the girls' dormitory and found Hope's room. Knocked on the door once he heard shuffling of feet nearing the door. It swung open. He saw the auburn-haired beauty as she breathed out his name. "Naruto." He gave her a charming smile. "The one and only," he joked lightly before asking the question he wanted for nearly a year now. "Hope Andrea Mikkelsen, will you do me the honor of going on a date with me?" He watched the girl's expression carefully. He felt a whirlwind of emotions pass through her in a second before she settled on joy. She nodded her head. "I'd love to," she said, smiling with a twinkle in her blue eyes. "Perfect. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'll pick you up here and wear something warm, okay?" he said as he walked backwards, staring at the girl before she nodded and agreed. He grinned and said goodnight before he left in a shunshin back to his own room. The next day passed quickly for our blonde hero. He resumed his scheduled sessions with the students and even had a one-on-one sparring session with Hope, which he was not afraid to admit felt quite good, though he was serious the entire time they sparred because he wanted her to be good to protect herself. She was an alpha and would soon, as he hoped. He corrected her form as they fought back and forth, launching punches, holding back most of his strength. He didn't want to injure her too badly because of the date this evening, but after that he would make sure she was ready to fight whatever creature would be coming next. "Hope, don't let your anger drive you. Calm your mind. Find your opponent's weaknesses. Assess the situation," he said as he dodged her punch and caught to uppercut she sent flying his way. "Better, but you have to be faster. Don't be indecisive," he praised. She twirled around and kicked him. He flipped midair and landed on his feet. "There you go," he said lightly before he increased his speed before sent a punch to her midsection and pinned her to the floor. Smirking, "I rather like this position," he teased. He watched the girl get red, and attempted to flip their positions, but he caught her. "Ah." He shook his head and stood up, lifting the girl with him. "You're improving, but you need to use that aggression that comes with being a wolf. Hope, don't be scared of it," he said as he picked up a towel and handed it to her. She was quiet before she responded. "How do you know I am scared of it?" "I can see the hesitance in your eyes and I can feel your emotions raging in you, Hope," he said before he walked away. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'll never be afraid of you, my little unicorn." Hope punched his arm. "Stop calling me that." She blushed. He laughed and shook his head. "Nope, I'll see you later 7 p.m. Hope, don't make me wait," he said before he vanished in Shunshin. Later that night Naruto dressed him. He wore a black jean with a white t-shirt and his boots. He took his black leather jacket and a scarf around his neck. He used a shunshin to get some flowers from town earlier, but he decided of getting one red rose instead and used a stasis seal on it so that it could remain fresh. He checked the time, it was about 6:55 p.m. so he could take a walk to Hope's room. He stood in front of the door with the rose behind his back and door swung open and he smiled widely. Hope was wearing a faded skinny jean, a casual yet sexy white blouse coupled with a leather jacket and a pair of heeled boots. She defiantly looked beautiful. "You look gorgeous, princess," he said honestly. Hope ducked her head skull and smiled back before he gave the flower to the girl. "Here you go." He handed the rose to Hope. "I don't have a vase," she said sadly. He smiled at the girl and reassured her. "Don't worry, I put a seal on it so it would be everlasting just like your beauty," he said sincerely. "Thank you, I love it," she said honestly before he took her in hand and led them down to the garage. "I hope you like Italian?" he asked after he opened the door for Hope and got in on the other side. "I do," she nodded. They drove out of the school gates. Thankfully he came back Friday night, so it was Saturday and so they wouldn't need to break school rules. "So are you going to tell me what you have planned?" he chuckled. "Well, there's dinner," he trailed off. "And," she motioned him to continue. "And then rest as a surprise, but I really hope you'll like it," he said as he made his way through town. They drove in a comfortable silence. He held Hope's hand throughout the drive and rubbed circles on the back of her hand as soft music played in. They arrived at the restaurant and he opened the door for her as they entered. They had a little private table. It was intimate and quite romantic. He had a simple meal but made small talk throughout dinner, learning more about each other's likes and would have liked wine, but unfortunately the drinking age in America was 21, so that was a no-go and he was sure Hope wouldn't appreciate it either. Hope on the other hand was enjoying herself. She listened to his impressions of the movies he watched and what he enjoyed. She never had a real date, everything was new. They had dessert. She wanted to split the bill but he gave her a laugh so much that his stomach hurt at the last comment he made. "I like you, Hope, so don't let me kick your ass," he said jokingly. When she wanted to pay she laughed and she couldn't remember when last she felt this free. Even though the school is facing a threat from an unknown creature, she enjoyed the night. For her part, she thought the date was over as they took a stroll through the park. "I really enjoyed myself tonight, Naruto, thank you." She squeezed his hand as they walked. "Well, it's not over yet, so I hope you're warm enough," he said before making sure no one was in the area and performed a small genjutsu that would make them invisible to the bit his thumb and summoned Ryu. He asked his dragon whether he would be okay with Hope riding him, and his personal summon was more than happy since he realized that Naruto liked the girl. "What are you doing?" she asked, looking around. Poof. The dragon appeared and he looked back to her and picked her up bridal style before jumping on Ryujin's back. He held Hope in front of him around her waist and whispered in her ear. "I'm taking you to the stars," he said before he nudged Ryujin, indicating that he could squeal as they lifted off and flew through the clouds. "Oh my god, this is amazing," she said, looking around before they broke through the clouds and saw the clear sky. "Beautiful," she breathed, squeezed her waist. "I couldn't agree more," he said. It went on like that for a couple of minutes until Ryujin went back down to the park. On their way home the drive was quiet. They entered the Salvatore gates and parked the car, that Hope didn't know actually belongs to Naruto until he told her it, walked quietly to her door. "This is me," she said cheesily, like every romantic comedy ever. She chuckled at her thoughts. "God, I sound like a cheesy rom-com." Naruto laughed softly and cupped her cheek and looked deep into her eyes. "I don't mind." He paused and tucked her hair behind her ear. "I really do like you, Hope, and I'm a possessive man. I don't like sharing," he said honestly. She nodded her head, listening to Naruto as he spoke. "And I was hoping that you'd be my girlfriend," he asked. He waited for her answer. She opened her mouth but closed it again. She didn't like to get close to people because everyone she ever loved seemed to die. "I'm broken, Naruto. Everyone I care for dies," she said softly, looking down. He lifted her chin. "I won't," he said seriously. "You can't say that. You can't promise me always and forever," she said as tears pooled in her eyes. "You're right, I can't," he agreed and watched a tear slip from the girl's eyes. She turned her face but he moved it back to her. "That's your family's motto, but I can promise you an eternity of tomorrows," he said before he leaned in and kissed her lips softly. He pulled away and kept his forehead to hers. "So will you be my girlfriend, Hope?" he asked softly. She laughed. "Yes, I will." He smiled widely before pressing his lips to hers again. The kiss was soft, gentle. It was a promise. He smiled against Hope's mouth before he moved away. Great. Amazing, I'm a very lucky fox. He gave her his foxy grin. Good night, princess. He gave her one last kiss before watching her go inside. Before she closed the door, she spoke once more. Good night, Naru, she whispered shyly before shutting the door. Chapter 10. Naruto had just returned from his usual morning workout. He was unwrapping his medical tape with his head down, walking the hallways by memory, when he heard a voice call out. His head snapped in the direction of the voice. A familiar-looking woman is standing there with a veil covering her face and a white wedding dress with mud on the bottom of it. Her identity is concealed by the hazy sunlight shining through the window. He knew she looked familiar, perhaps one of the photos in Alaric's office, but her attire seemed out of place. Runaway bride, maybe. He thought as he stepped closer. Her scent was human, but there was something off. He kept his guard up as he approached the woman. I'm sorry, do you need help? He asked the woman. He was still dressed in a basketball shorts and a vest. His feet was covered in medical tape as well. The woman stared at him cautiously before opening her mouth to speak. Yes, I'm looking for Alaric Saltzman. Do you know him? Asked the brunette politely. Naruto used his sensor to sense whether the woman had any ill or negative intentions. To his, he only felt longing and a painful ache. He nodded his head shortly. Yes, I do. I could take you to him if you'd like. I mean, it looks like you've run away from a crappy wedding, he joked lightly to ease the tension. Something like that, yeah, joked the woman back. He told the woman to follow him. It was still early, so there wasn't any students up. Besides, it was Saturday. He was sure the only people awake right now was Lizzie and Josie because it was their birthday, which reminded him he needed to get the two of them a gift since they had become friends. He'd been helping Lizzie with her more violent moods through proper meditation. They arrived before the double doors of the office. He was about to enter when he heard Alaric's voice. It sounded frustrated and exasperated. It was clear he was having a heated conversation with someone. He knocked before he stuck his head in. The older man looked up and motioned him to come in as he finished the phone call. But how do I tell the girls that their mom isn't gonna be there for their 16th birthday? I can't exactly tell them what you're really involved in, he said before he stopped talking when Naruto was followed in by the woman in a wedding dress. Alaric's words stuck in his throat as he watched the woman from his past, his fiancée, the biological mother of his twin daughters. Hello, Rick. Rick, he heard on the phone before replying, finally finding his tongue as he looked at a ghost from his past. I'll speak to you later, Caroline. Something needs my attention, he said as he ended the call. Joe, he breathed out unbelievably as he stared at the woman. She gave him a bright smile, but Naruto realized now why this woman was so familiar. It was Alaric's dead fiancé, or rather supposed dead fiancé. He wondered whether this could be another monster after the knife, using false pretenses to lure them into a false security before stealing the knife. Alaric, do you mind telling me why your dead fiancé is here? Do we have a new monster or something? He told the man, knocking him out of his stupor. I'm not sure. He looked lost and confused. The feelings he buried so long ago all rose up to the surface with a vengeance. He didn't grieve the proper way. Instead, he threw himself into work and raised the twins with Caroline as best as he could. Now he was standing motionless in front of his past. He felt like he was drowning, or what he thought drowning felt like, the water filling up your lungs, and you found it impossible to breathe without swallowing another gallon of water. Rick, said Naruto for the third time before the man paid attention. The woman on the other end stared worriedly at her fiancé. He looked like he was on the verge on a panic or anxiety attack. She tried calling out to him, but he just stared at her unmoving. She realized her speaking was just making the situation worse. Finally, Alaric looked to Naruto. His ears no longer felt blocked. He braced himself, his hands planted on the desk while taking a deep breath and composing himself. Alaric, do you think it's another monster? Asked Naruto gently, not wanting to anger or make the man panic once more. I'm sorry about that, he said before he looked to the blonde. It could be, and considering my reaction just now, perhaps it wants us to be frozen when facing our loved ones woe are no longer with us, he said quietly. Naruto nodded. He had the same theory. No one randomly just comes back from the dead 16 years later. I'm right here, and I don't like the comment about me being a monster. I know arriving in my wedding dress isn't proper protocol, but she said. Both men turned and stared at her, and Naruto turned back to Alaric. I'm assuming Caroline won't make it based on the last part of that phone call. He asked. He knew why Caroline was gone most of the time, and it wasn't just because of recruitment efforts for the school. During the year training trip, Alaric opened up to him and explained that himself and Caroline were looking for something that would save their daughters from a curse they had since they were born and was put on every set of twins that were born from the Gemini coven. The man grimaced and nodded his head. Naruto sighed softly. Can you handle this? He checked with the man. Since it's someone you know, hopefully we can find more answers and I'll go break the news to the girls before someone else does. Alaric nodded gratefully. He was happy his daughters and Naruto got along. Since he started helping Lizzie with her meditation, she was in a better headspace mentally, but he was worried that this would reset any progress that was made. Thanks, Naruto. Naruto nodded before he left the office, and Alaric turned back to the woman in the wedding dress and said she could take a seat. Okay, why are you here? He asked firmly as he stared down the woman after taking out the truth orb. Naruto was on his way to his room for a shower since he had gone straight to Alaric's office of training outside, so he felt all sweaty, and needed a shower before seeing the twins. So far the week that followed his date with Hope, they had gone on another 2 dates but kept their relationship between the two of them for the time being, since he didn't want to bombard her with displays of public affection. Hope was a work in progress with showing affection publicly, but when they were by themselves their makeout sessions often got heated that he needed ice-cold shower after to cool off. The tribrid teased him shamelessly. After 20 minutes he dressed and headed out to the girls' dormitory. He knocked on their door but didn't get an answer. He was sure that they would be awake, especially Lizzie, since they were pretty excited about their 16th birthday, and now he was about to dash their hopes since they expected their mother to be home. Sigh. He was not looking forward to it all. He knocked a third time and there still wasn't any answer. He was going to walk away before Penelope, Josie's ex-girlfriend, showed up around the corner and said they weren't there. Well, where are they? He asked the girl impatiently. He wasn't fond of her. She hurt Josie, yet she seemed to always be around trying to get a rise out of either twin. She put the tough guy act on, but he knew she still cared for the brunette soft-spoken twin but didn't like to show it. She was known as a mixture between a tsundere and yandere. Baka. He laughed at his thoughts before tuning into the girl as she spoke. Well, I thought it was important for them to know that their mother wouldn't be here on the birthday, especially Lizzie. She feigned concern with a frown on her face. He cursed under his breath. Damn it, Penelope, he said before he moved and shushined to Alaric's office, only to find the two girls staring at the biological mother. He heard the last comment Lizzie made, and it was snarky, just like he suspected. Who's this trollop? She snarked. He would have laughed if the situation had been any different, but now Alaric was looking at him flustered while Josie gasped, "Oh my God." What, Joe? Use your words, said Lizzie in a sarcastic tone with a roll of her eyes. She was pissed off. Her morning started out great, and last night she had sex with Raphael, but Josie's damn ex Satan in a crop top decided to ruin her amazing mood with news that would stop all the progress she had made lately with Naruto's help. It's her, Lizzie, said Josie while pointing at the woman who had a framed photo on Alaric's shelf. Gisette no longer wore her veil on her face so they could see her face clearly. What do you mean her? She trailed off before taking a proper look at the trollop. She meant woman's face. Holy shit. Your bio mom, she said loudly, and Naruto face faulted. This girl just insulted her biological, supposed to be dead mother and now cursed in front of her father. Language, he admonished lightly before turning to look at Naruto. I thought you were going to keep them away. I was, but that evil little witch your daughter had a dalliance with decided to share the news with them before I could do damage control. Besides, you know how easily she ruffles Elizabeth's feathers. He heard an offended "Hey" from said girl before he continued. Besides, Rick, you know I wouldn't allow this intentionally, especially with what the circumstances might be, he said gently, and the man nodded his head in acceptance of the explanation because they were pretty sure that this was a monster, meaning they would have to probably kill his zombie fiancé. He hoped that it wouldn't scar the man mentally. He decided to take the girls away. Come on girls, you have a party to get ready for and I'll even help. He tried convincing them. Lizzie seemed to have bounced back already and nodded quickly. Yes please, your clones will make the preparation go much quicker. Naruto gave a grim smile. He felt sorry for his had more trouble with Josie, though. She looked back at her mother with tears in her eyes. Will you be here after? She asked desperately. The woman gave her a soft smile. I hope so, she answered. Naruto closed the doors behind him. He stood still with both girls in front of him. He knew no matter how Lizzie hid her feelings, she was shocked, so he pulled them both into a tight hug and whispered, "I'm sorry Caroline won't be here, even though I know she would have liked to be." He kissed both of their heads. He saw them as little sister, Lizzie being the tsundere and Josie being a bit like Hinata but adorable and lovable. "Happy birthday, princesses," he said before he released them from his hold. "You both okay?" "I am okay, it's just a lot to process, you know," said Josie quietly. He nodded. He understood what the girl said. "Yeah, I'm good too, don't worry, besides I'm going to torture your clones," Lizzie said, smiling. He rolled his eyes. Yeah, now off you go, get ready for the day." After the whole dead not dead mom drama in Alaric's office, Naruto went to get smoothies for the girls from Mystic Grill. Well, for 3 of his girls actually. The only people who were aware of their relationship was Emma, Tig, Dorian and Alaric. He didn't mind, besides he didn't need to fend of any bastards from Hope since the Hobbit wasn't dropped. The 2 strawberry shakes off with Lizzie and Josie and gave Lizzie liberal use of 6 shadow clones, but by the look his clones gave him, he was sure he would pay for it dearly at the next sparring session. A shiver went up his spine. He was now looking for his girlfriend. She wasn't in her room or the lake where they usually met, was passing the gym when he saw Hope dancing with Raphael with a smile on her. Nearly squeezed the milkshake out of the cup, but he calmed his anger and decided to stand by the door and listen to their conversation. He wasn't spying on his girlfriend, no. No siree. He was merely a concerned lover, that was all. Unfortunately, with becoming a Hanyu, his emotions all heightened, meaning if he saw someone touching and being that close to his mate, of course he was allowed to have some negative emotions toward such a scene. No. He wasn't about to ban her from all contact with males, that was overboard, but this Raphael seemed to be much too close to Hope, and being a censor he could feel the boy's lust and attraction to the blue-eyed tribrid, so yes, of course he was reasonably jealous, but adding the confusion he felt from Hope was just icing on the damn cake. He made his decision to show himself and not be that guy who creepily stalks ex-wife or something. That's definitely not who he wanted to be known as. "Well, don't you two look cozy?" he asked mockingly with a fake smile on his face as he watched the 2 jump apart. He raised an eyebrow at the behavior because they acted like they got caught sticking their hand in the proverbial cookie jar. He didn't comment on the behavior, instead he waited for them to answer. To his dismay, the mutt spoke. "Hope was just teaching me how to dance so that I could be a good escort for Lizzie," he said quickly while Hope nodded in agreement. "I see, I wasn't aware that you would be escorting the lovely Elizabeth." He raised his eyebrow. He heard the boy scoff quietly. "Yeah, I kinda felt bad." Naruto clenched his jaw at his tone. Of course he knew Lizzie was a handful, but she deserved better than this prick. Someone like MG, maybe a decent guy that would treat her right and not leave after she, and kept his thoughts to himself and turned to Hope, who hasn't spoken since he got here. "Yeah, and we are kind of stuck in here," added Hope. "Why?" he questioned shortly. "Courtesy of Penelope, she trying to mess up the twins' birthday." Said was aware that the 2 of them weren't public yet, but Naruto seemed angry, and by the look on his face she didn't know what to expect the next time they were alone. "Fucking Penelope," he growled slightly. "I'm really starting to dislike that girl more and more as the day goes on," he said loudly before sighing and looking back to Hope and the mutt. "Well, enjoy yourselves. From the looks of it, seemed like a lot of fun," he said suggestively before turning on his heel before throwing away the milkshake he got for Hope in the trash as he left without another word. He decided to take his mind off Hope's apparent confusion. He wasn't sure whether she was unsure of her own feelings for him or whether she felt attracted to Raphael and was confused by truly thought they were good. They were dating 2 weeks and she seemed happy whenever they were together. Yes, Hope hasn't told him about her past or family, even though he pretty much told her what happened to him. Because he trusted her. Girl had trust issues, but he would wait as long as he needed to before she felt comfortable enough to tell him about her parents and family. He kept his word. He didn't try to learn about her family, though he heard enough from the whispers of the students to know that her father wasn't well liked and was the villain in everyone's story beside Hope's. He entered the grand hall and spotted Lizzie mercilessly working his clones. He smiled before talking. "Elizabeth, I am here to help. What do you need?" Imouto. During their sessions he would steadily teach her some of his home language, which he learned was Japanese, apparently in a real language in this dimension. He found it odd but discarded the thought because he was sure if Kami could send him to this dimension, Why couldn't she had sent someone else and then taught the island that Japan is on their language and also about the beliefs? Even though samurai and shinobi had died out, there was still multiple stories about it. He was happy that at least there was some place in this world similar to the elemental. Made a mental note to visit someday when the school or world wasn't under the threat of an unknown entity. Ah, just the sweet, helpful older brother I needed, she said with sweet smile that promised hard work, and groaned silently before getting to work. Our resident tribrid was even more confused by her boyfriend's behavior. She saw the fake smile on his face when he addressed them. She hoped he wasn't jealous. She was knocked out of her thoughts when she heard Raphael speak. Instead of helping, he walks away. I really don't like him, he said, watching the door Naruto disappeared from. Hope frowned, looking back at to defend her boyfriend's actions. He's not a witch, Raphael, so he couldn't undo the spell anyway, she defended with a frown on her face at the wolf's tone. He's supposed to be like a teacher or something, right? He asked, waiting for Hope to answer. Not a teacher, more of an instructor. Besides, he's a year older than me, meaning he's 17 inches. Yeah, whatever instructor or teacher, he could have gotten Penelope back here to take down the spell, but instead he just walks away. I think I need to ask Dr. Saltzman about the people he hires because he insults me all the time too. I am sure that's not supposed to happen, complained the boy angrily. Even when they had his defense classes, he would go harder on the wolves than the witches. Hope looked at him confused now and a bit angry as well that he was trying to get her boyfriend fired. What do you mean? I mean, in the classes he teaches he goes harder on the wolves than the witches, he said, trying to make a point that because he's the alpha. Hope sighed at the boy's argument. It was stupid. She knew why he went harder on the wolves than the witches, and the reasoning was simple. The wolves would heal faster than the witches, and it was the same with the vampires. She knew Naruto was ruthless when it came to training because he wanted them to be prepared if and when they fought a monster. That's silly. The wolves heal faster, that's why, and also he does the same with the vampires since I've watched the training myself. No one else is complaining because he explained why he trains us so hard in the first place. Raphael, she said before walking away to sit on the benches in the gym. Why are you defending him? He asked suspiciously. Is he your friend? He asked. She shook her head. No, it was true, he wasn't just her friend since they were dating, so technically she didn't lie. Raphael scoffed mockingly. Yeah, why did I even ask? The great Hope Mikhailson doesn't need any friends, right? She scowled and decided to not answer him, but seemed like he was on a roll. Everyone needs a pack, Hope, he said, and she scoffed. I have my family, she said, referring to her remaining living relatives. No, that's too far away. I'm talking about here, Hope. I've got Landon and the pack, but who do you have? Her mind was screaming, I have Naruto, but didn't dare mention it out loud. Instead, she went with, this coming from the guy who's taking Lizzie on a pity date because he feels bad he slept with her. No thanks, I'd rather be alone, she said firmly. Before ending their conversation, she said, 5 more minutes, then I'm out of here. When the 5 minutes were up, the barrier was let down and they walked out of the gym their own separate ways. She was walking to her room when she heard Lizzie and Josie's laughter from the grand hall. As she passed and saw they were laughing at of catching his eye, she made her way to her room and decided to get ready for the party. She had a gift for Josie and decided to put it in her room on her pillow with a note attached. Naruto checked in with Rick and after he finished his investigation. Apparently she didn't show any signs of wanting the knife, only that she woke up and made her way to him. Looking for seemed weird, and even more so because she passed through the barrier he set up, but Alaric explained to him that Gisette was buried in the graveyard that was on the accepted the explanation and told Alaric that he would get ready for the party since he planned on escorting Josie because she didn't have a partner. Are you sure you'll be okay, Rick? He asked for the last time before he left the room. Yeah, don't worry about me, just keep my baby girls safe please, Naruto, said the man pleadingly. Naruto nodded once at the man before leaving the room. Back in his own room, he dressed in a navy suit. The suit was tailored to his body so it looked perfect on him. He rather liked it more than he would restrict some of his movement, but it's the least he could do for the girl since her mother wouldn't be at their birthday. It neared the time for the party, so he was off to find the girl. He entered the twins' room but didn't see a trace of the twins. He went down to the grand hall and watched as they announced Lizzie. She looked beautiful, but he wasn't sure where Josie was. He was sure the girl wouldn't skip out on her own birthday. Looked around the room to see whether he could spot the girl, but no. Spotted Penelope and approached the witch. Have you seen Josie? I was supposed to escort her, but I wasn't able to find her in her room, asked Naruto quickly. He sincerely hoped that this girl didn't have anything to do with it, since she has been causing chaos all day. He saw MG near as well and motioned the boy over, asking the same question, since Penelope was telling the truth when she said she hasn't seen Josie for hours. He nodded and left the hall quickly, not even bothering to tell the other two not to follow his way. He bumped into Alaric holding his dead fiancée in a chokehold. Her eyes were completely white with no pupil present. Where is she? He said impatiently. Naruto looked between the two and put two and two together and realized Rick was asking about Josie. Josette's eyes returned back to normal and struggled to speak. Graveyard, she muttered. Naruto looked at Alaric and said before he sped off. Deal with that, I'll go find Josie, he said with MG and Penelope on his heels. They ran into Hope. She was wearing a stunning maroon dress armed with a shovel. He looked at her, shrugged. I found it in the janitor's closet after I heard Alaric was looking for Josie. He nodded and ran off into the graveyard. He tried listening for the girl's screams or something. He thought she was buried alive. Why else would she be in a darn graveyard late at night? MG, I want you to listen carefully to any noises. It could be Josie, he said sternly. Before moving, he heard something. It sounded like groaning, but it was a male's voice and definitely not Josie. Be careful and be ready for anything. Something else is out there. He flashed his eyes to the demonic one, completely red with a black cross where his pupil would help him see in the dark. He looked to where the noise was coming from and he spotted something stumbling. Upon closer inspection, he realized it was a fucking zombie. Man, I just got this suit, he muttered before letting the others know. Soon they were fighting about 20 zombies. Go for the brain, screamed MG, and he appreciated the boy's knowledge on comics more than ever right now. MG, you concentrate on listening for Joe, Hope, Penelope, and I will deal with these fuckers. He gritted his teeth as swung him fist and smashed it into the zombie's head. He pulled his hand back and saw the brain matter on his fist. Grimacing at the went like that for a few minutes. Hope and Penelope smashing the walkers, killing them for the second time. I think I got her, said MG as he ran to the grave where he heard Josie's voice. He started to dig but was pushed out of the way by Naruto that flipped through signs quickly. Hakastu no jutsu. Yeah, I made up my own jutsu because I couldn't find anything for excavating a shallow grave, he said before slamming his hand on the ground and lifting Josie out of her shallow. Saw Josie wearing the pendant she charmed and breathed sigh in relief. It worked. Josie was now hugging MG, looked back to Hope and asked, what is it supposed to do? Make quiet things heard, she said, smiling at the girl. Josie turned to Naruto and gave him a big hug, crying in his chest. I was so scared. Thank you for finding me, Ni-san, she whispered. Naruto squeezed her tightly before cupping her cheeks. I'll always find you. Come on, let's get you cleaned up. The girl nodded. He looked at Hope and mouthed a thank you before lifting the girl up bridal style, walked her back into the school. Hope watched the two interact. She could help but feel jealous because of how close Josie and Naruto was. She was the one who wanted to keep their relationship a secret so she couldn't make a big deal out of it in front the others. She sighed to herself before following them inside. She saw Naruto drop Josie at the communal bathrooms for a shower. She was about to pass them when he said told that he would be getting some clothes for her and then he'd be right back. The girl nodded and went into the bathroom. He caught Hope's eye as she passed and decided to walk together to the girls' dorms, since Hope's room was down the hall from the twins. Hey, she greeted quietly as they walked next to each other. Hey, you all right? He asked, since everything happened so quickly he didn't see Hope after he saw her in the gym with the mutt. Yeah, I am okay. You? He shrugged. I'm good, just worried about Josie's mental health after this whole ordeal, he said, deep in thought, knowing there would definitely be after effects that came with being buried alive. Do you mind waiting for me in the common room, Hope? I'd like us to talk after I make sure Josie and Rick are all right. He turned and faced the girl. Waiting for her response, the girl gave him a soft smile and kissed her forehead before he left. Once Naruto got clothes for Josie, he put them near the bench and fetched Lizzie and told her about what happened. The girl cried, blaming herself for hogging all the time they needed to get ready. That's why Josie had gone to their bio mom for help. He managed to calm the girl down and explained to her that it wasn't really her fault, however she should have realized her sister was missing, especially with everything that's been happening lately. I am sorry, you're right, I hope Joe forgives me, she said. He smiled and patted her head affectionately. I'm sure she will, but try and be better than everyone thinks you are, Lizzie. I've seen the girl you really are. Underneath all the superficial behavior is a beautiful woman with a heart so big just waiting to be filled. Even if you just show your sister, I know she'll appreciate it, he said honestly. Lizzie's eyes filled with tears as she hugged her fellow blonde. She opened herself completely up to him and told him that in her mind, it's her always fighting against herself and she didn't know how to make it stop. That's why she acted like she did. Josie joined them. She apologized to her sister and they hugged it out. Naruto took them to their father's office where he was waiting for, opened the door and nodded at Rick because he knew what the man was going to ask his daughters to do. Before Naruto left, he clapped Alaric's shoulder affectionately and whispered, "When it's done we'll have a drink," he said before leaving. Naruto walked down the halls with his suit's jacket undone, shirt partly unbuttoned with his tie hanging loosely around his hand in his pants pockets. He was tired and needed a nap, but he wanted to talk to Hope about their relationship and what she was feeling. Before he entered the common room, he heard two voices, one being Hope's and the other the mutt. Growling softly, he listened to them speak. "You want to see if I still got it?" asked Raphael. He winks at Hope and she shrugs. "Why not?" Hope stands to her feet and takes his offered hand before she and Raphael start to dance in front of the fireplace. After a brief period of silence, Raphael once again takes in Hope's current appearance and cracks a joke. "You look like you took a bath in dirt," said Raphael in amusement. Hope smiles in sarcastic amusement. "Oh, thank you," she said in a sarcastic tone. "You're welcome," answered Raphael. Naruto, who was watching the entire thing play out, how comfortable Hope looks in Raphael's arms. The way she allowed him to lead the dance to no music, just the accompanied by the sounds of the Naruto. It seems like deja vu. Instead, this time there's no containment spell, and it's much more intimate with the fire burning in the fireplace and the dimmed lights. He couldn't help the frown that appeared on his face. Raphael turned Hope and she faces toward the door. She sees her disheveled blonde-haired boyfriend standing there with his arms crossed and a frown on his face. Before he shakes his head and turns to walk, stops dancing with Raphael and runs out, looking left and right in the hallway before she realizes that he disappeared completely. Hope hears Raphael calling for her, but she doesn't pay attention as she searches for her boyfriend. She runs up to his room and swings the door wide open but sees nothing other than the unmade bed. She steps inside and opens the bathroom door but doesn't see him. Her eyes were glassy from the tears. She didn't know why she accepted Raphael's offer for a dance, but she realized how it must to Naruto, her in the arms of another man with her head against his chest. Before she leaves, she takes one more look at the room and closes the door. She could help the tear that hoped they would be okay and decided to speak to her boyfriend tomorrow. Naruto opens Alaric's door and throws his jacket on the couch. The older man looks up and shakes the bottle of whiskey in his hand and smiles glumly. "The universal indicator for you, want some?" he sighs heavily before plopping down in the chair on the other side of the desk. "Make it a double." That's it for this part. Let me know how it's going.